the 2013th meeting of the Board of Trustees. Please rise and join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. We're honored to have Reverend Khalil Parker here with us tonight. Reverend Parker is the minister of Liberty Hill Missionary Baptist Church. And again, we're honored to have him offer the invocation for us tonight. Reverend Parker.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilman Boyce. Thank you for the opportunity. Good evening to everybody. As he said, I'm the pastor here at Liberty Hill, just about a half a mile up the road here. I would like to center us with one scripture before I pray in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse number 1. It reads, I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercession, and giving of thanks be made for all men. He suggests that it's good for all of us to be covered under prayer. Then he says, especially for kings and those who are in leadership and in authority, that we may lead a quiet and a peaceable life in all godliness and in all honesty. And as challenging as it can be to lead at any level, particularly at this level, I think it is good for us to lead from a place of honesty and a place of godliness. I want to center us with that thought, and then we will proceed now to pray together. If you'll bow with me, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your mercy and your grace. Our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God, we pray now that you will be with us tonight during this meeting. Thank you for every leader, every person that is gathered here. We thank you, God, for what you're doing here in our community. We thank you for Wesley Chapel. We thank you for this county, God. Let your favor, let your mercy, and let your grace be with us in this time of meeting and in this time of preparation. We give your name praise. We give your name thanks. We invite your presence now. Lead us and guide us in the way that you would have us to go. We trust you and believe you for all things. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Thank God. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend.
Okay, so that leads us to the public comment portion of the evening. This is general public comment, so we will be having a public hearing for the budget later on in item number 9. So, the regular public comment. So, regular public comments first. We have John Lutke.
One of them is budget related. I just want to raise two things. One's an observation that 2 weeks ago we had such incredibly beautiful grass all around the town hall, and today it's all dying because it's not being irrigated. If you want dead grass around the whole town hall, continue what you're doing. If you want that grass to get back soon, you've got to turn the irrigation system on, because in 2 weeks it's all going to be dead. So that's my observation. The second thing I wanted to raise is related to the budget, but I'll do it now for you to think about. In the budget you guys are looking to approve, there's $5,000 for the drinking water fountain install, and you've taken out the proposed money for the irrigation system. I'd like you to consider moving what you've approved for the drinking fountain install to the irrigation if you don't want to fund the full irrigation expansion. And the reason for that is the following. I'm going to give you the background. We had once previously approved money for that fountain install, and when I got 2 licensed plumbers out to look at the job, they said, to get a permit, you've got to have a sewer to run the drain to. We'd previously been told we could just run the runoff to ground. 2 licensed plumbers told me, no, you can't do that. A member of Parks and Rec, Julie, followed up with Union County Building, who confirmed a sewer or septic system is necessary for the runoff. And then about 2 weeks ago, there was a Union County Building inspector taking a break in the park, so I took the opportunity to have a discussion with him. He also confirmed if you're going to install a drinking fountain, it's got to go to a sewer or a septic, which we don't have in the park. So it's very, very likely we're not going to spend that $5,000 installing that because we don't have sewer. So can you please move at least that much to the irrigation system, and we'll do a partial expansion if you won't fund the whole expansion of the irrigation system. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Then we have Mr. William Rowley. You'll come to the podium and state your name and address, please.
I'm William Houston Rowley Jr. I live at 1015 Cumberson Road. And I want to, wasn't able to be here last meeting. I want to thank y'all for accepting me into the village. I now have all of my 8.5 acres in the village, and I'm very excited about that. Of course, I'm a little surprised I haven't heard from Attorney Madeline Trilling objecting to it, but I guess there's still time for that. So anyway, but I did want to bring you up to speed real quick on your insight that you had into what would take to put in a right turn lane on Cumberson Road. Now that the engineering has been done, I'm just going to pass this along so you can see it. I got this from Sam and Kim and also from United Methodist Church. They now say they need 10 more feet. They have made an effort to try to buy that at ridiculous low prices, and they've been turned down by everybody. That being the case, I'm going to move on real quick. What has happened is that Vaughn has had an opportunity to talk with some people and with some DOT. Some of my neighbors, Kim and Sam, one's involved directly in this on Farm Creek, and we know Farm Creek was left out of both the DIAs. They've all had a chance to talk to the DOT, and the DOT said, well, there's actually a process where we could study this and look at there is a circle, would be an opportunity there at Cumberson and Newtown. And so what I wanted to do was I've got David Mount, who's got time, and I've got a lot of people in that neighborhood together at Farm Creek and Champion Forest up down Cumberson who think a circle would be a good idea, but we want to see about putting that forward. Our thought is this, though. We want to make sure, we know y'all don't approve roads or whatever, but we also know that y'all are very involved in what happens to these circles around here and how they come to be. And so we would want to be in concert with the town if we continue to pursue it. So we would want to know in whatever fashion that you guys would look at it would be like, yeah, if they NCDOT says put a circle, we're for it. We're happy with a circle. Because it would be a change from a right turn lane. And again, the concern is that Farm Creek was left out of both of those scenarios, and for them to go across 3 lanes of traffic, we all heard all about that. So anyway, so that is something that I didn't quite know where to bring it up. I didn't want to get on the agenda to bring that up, but if I could get some kind of guidance, I'd like to, put all our efforts together. And so anyway, I'm open to suggestions and help in that regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So that leaves us to additions, deletions, and adoption agenda. I need to add under the consent agenda an ARP policy for resolution and eligibility. That was emailed to you today. Sorry for the last minute notice. We're trying to get these policies cranked out as fast as possible and reviewed by our legal team. So I would like to add item G, the resolution and eligibility ARP policy.
I think that's already in item 6.
Oh, that's another one. Can we just add it to the consent?
Do you want to move it from 6 to?
Yeah. Is that okay now?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we need to have a discussion on it, or are we okay with putting it
I didn't know.
on the consent agenda?
I thought it was different.
There-
Discussion.
there's 2 policies.
There's 2 policies, so there's
They're both in item 6.
acceptable uses, no, cost principles, and then eligible resolution and eligibility. We can talk about it, that's fine. I didn't realize they were both down here, sorry. So then I would like to add that we at least talk about and potentially approve the RFQ for the dam remediation. We can add it, maybe we can make it 8A, so we can talk about that. There. And then does anybody have Anything else you'd like to add or change or delete? No?
I'll make a motion that we accept it with the addition of item 8A.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Was that unanimous? Yes.
Okay, so then that brings us to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve is made.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. All right, brings us to number 5, our planning board report and comment from our plan.
We had a very efficient planning board meeting last month. Had 2 items, went through primarily the text amendment that will be considered by council in July, that fairly broad and considering changes to the scope and applicability of special use permits in the zoning ordinance. We also made a recommendation on Mr. Rulli's initial zoning after following his annexation into the village, and we gave the planning board an update on the comprehensive plan. That was pretty much it with the meeting last month. Yeah.
Any questions for Warren?
Regarding the planning board meeting note, questions on the report.
Sure.
Is that good time for that?
Please.
Okay. There were 30 on the sign sweeps from March. There were 37. The last 2 months we've had none. Is that because we don't have any signs that are going up, or is that because we don't have anybody doing sweeping?
That's Amy. Amy does the signs for you.
Part of it was the election signs. She didn't want to do an sign sweep when the election signs were still up.
Okay. Okay. But she is still doing the sign sweep?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Monthly? Okay. And then do we need to discuss the Cottonwood property?
It is item 11.
Okay, you're right. Sorry. Okay.
Have we had an update on Food Line? I keep getting asked when they're going to be open.
I haven't heard anything. We, I guess, approved all their stuff a long time ago. I think Cheryl heard something from one of the ladies in their marketing department maybe before our last planning board
been a while.
meeting. But
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You get asked about Food Line. You get asked about Starbucks. Any movement with Starbucks?
dust in the wind.
Dust in the wind. Okay.
And just so everybody knows, David and myself and Vaughn are going to be meeting with Aston Properties tomorrow. Hopefully next month we'll be able to share something productive. Has Harris Teeter talked about when they're going to start their expansion?
No, they have all their permits though.
They do. Okay.
As far as I know, they don't need anything else from us.
Any more questions for Vaughn? All right, so that brings us to the approval of our CUP order denying SUP 13-04 amendment 2021-2. I would like to take out under number 5 where it says no evidence of availability. It should just say availability of services because the item things are just listing the findings of fact, not whether or not there is evidence or not. So Cheryl, for number 5, we would just cross out no evidence of, and the sentence would start with availability.
Good catch.
Does anybody have any more comments? Or if not, I will entertain a motion to approve the CUP order denying the SUP amendment.
So motion with the noted change.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Oh, we need to make sure that we have Deb Bledsoe is not participating. She has recused herself from voting on this matter. Any further discussion? All in favor? Three. Okay. That brings us to the finance officer's report.
Okay.
An update on the ARP plan.
Okay. You have the May financial reports, and during the month of May, I did make a budget amendment. I moved $400 to, if I can read my notes, to repair services. 400 went there, and 10 went to the trash services, and I took that $410 from plumber. Some of the bills are going up. That's why we need a little bit of extra money there. I did consult with the School of Government about the accounting for the ARP funds, and actually one of them said they were glad I asked, and they had to get back with me and all, but you'll see that it's presented a little differently on our financial statements. The cash is reported as restricted ARP cash. That's $278,812.88. And there is a liability for ARP funds of $278,812.88. And at this point, we have not recognized any revenue. Probably maybe in July, we can do an amendment and we can recognize some of the revenue. And we can get to the point where we can supplant some salary expense. Hopefully, I don't know, $120,000 at least. So
You said we can go back to
March 3rd, 2021. And unfortunately, the first pay period is paid March 18th, but it was for February 27th, so I'm going to prorate it so we can get as much as we can. So we have that. During the month, let's see. The alcoholic beverage tax came in, and it came in lower than it was budgeted. Came in at $34,599.98. So I was a little disappointed in that. As far as expenditures, we are getting close to finishing our comprehensive plan, so we have spent most of that money. We did spend $5,042 in legal fees, and we paid for some more of our event services. A couple of things came in a little later than usual. We spent $4,847 on the second dam project out of the $50,000 budgeted. And we did buy the plants for the landscape repairs behind the stage. We spent $2,186 there. And then at the very end, when you see like the American and the American Rescue Plan, that's just showing I reversed the original recognition of the revenue. So. Do you want to go on to the policies?
No, one question, and only, Cheryl, only ask because it worked on curiosity, okay?
Sure.
I noticed where we had a deposit for town hall rental last month.
The $100?
Yeah. Are we seeing much activity with town hall rental?
Not a lot. We had one, I think it was Alan Tate that wanted to rent it.
Okay. So some, but not a lot. Thank you.
So in the policies, we have the eligibility determination policy, and these policies, we get them from the School of Government. We look at them and make changes pertinent to us. Then we send them to George and Sarah. I don't know if you've all been introduced, but this is Sarah Sawyer from Hamilton, Stevens, whatever.
Yeah, that's good enough.
HSSM. So she's reviewed it and made a few legal changes. So this is a resolution to adopt the policy and then the policy.
Can we adopt the same resolution and add in the title of the
Well, we have two
resolution
different,
and eligibility, or do we have to draft a new resolution?
we have two separate resolutions. One's for the cost principles policy and one's for the eligibility determination policy.
Are they in the same, the same 10-page document?
Let's see, I don't think so. One's longer than the other. One was only one was 4 pages.
Right, the cost principles is,
The cost principles is the longer one, yeah.
and the other resolution is? was it-
Eligibility determination.
Was that in your email?
Yeah, I believe so. Mhm.
Anybody have any questions about those policies?
Legals reviewed both of them, and both of them were okay.
Yes.
So, Sarah, should we approve them separately, or can we do them together?
I think since we did it as two separate resolutions, do it separately.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution in the cost principles policy.
So motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? And then a motion for the resolution for the eligible uses policy.
So motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? That brings us to the communications committee report. I will say that this does have to do with this item. Lori and Cheryl and I did have a phone call today with our current website provider to see what features we could receive from them to update our website. He's going to work on a proposal and get it back to us. So we'll share that as soon as we have it. And then Deb, do you want to speak to this item?
When the communications charter was written, it had a term of office that pretty much followed Parks and Rec's, what they did. And so, in light of staff has concerns about it being the difference length of term for officers as opposed to general committee members. So the committee redid the charter, and basically I sent all of you an email with that page in there. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it or not, but basically what it does is it says upon adoption of this charter, the committee chair, vice chair, and all member positions shall serve 3-year terms. So instead of having some 4 and some 3, it's just across the board making everybody's term 3-year terms to follow what Parks and Rec did to stay in consistency with the other committees.
When we revise a charter, Cheryl, we just make a motion to revise it to those terms. That's it. Okay. So Deb, do you want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the Communications Committee's request that the charter be changed to read that all member positions shall serve 3-year terms. That was the only change in the charter.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, one more second. Good. Within the charter, under procedures, it gives the date of their meetings each month. Okay. Should we consider adding to their charter that we have periodic, that there's someone from the communications committee that meets with council periodically just to sort of stay abreast as to what they've got going on?
We don't require that for our other boards and committees. We have a council member.
What other boards and committees do we have?
Planning board.
Which are here every month. Well, typically.
Right, and typically.
We have someone here every month.
Yeah, and then.
And we also have the planner that can speak to that.
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, we're generally here every month.
I don't think it's in their charter, though, that they have to. They do come every month.
So we could ask them to come once a quarter instead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'd like to address, you said maybe every month. When the communications committee, when COVID hit, there was all the things that the committee had planned basically fell by the wayside because of COVID. Everything was backing down. So committee decided to meet every other month instead of every month, just to, because there really wasn't a whole lot to be doing. And so the committee is now talking about going back to meeting on a monthly basis. And
Thursdays at 7.
Or Thursdays.
I noticed in Francesca's email, she put the fourth Wednesday at 7 p.m. And I noticed in the charter it said the fourth Thursday at 7 p.m.
Oh yeah, there was basically she went around and asked everybody, all the committee members, what was a good night for them, and they decided that I think Wednesdays was the best night to meet. And did she not put that in a?
She put it in the email she sent.
I know.
She sent it today.
Oh, today, okay.
But it's inconsistent since the charter says the Thursday,
Yes,
and
I
that's
appreciate you bringing that up.
the Wednesday.
They have chosen on Wednesday nights just because there were more people that were able to come on Wednesday night as opposed to Thursday night. Thursday night was a bad night. So they're going to request that they meet the fourth Wednesday of the month.
So after we close this motion, we probably should make another motion to amend their charter for that.
And also, they're the only ones that can change their meeting schedule. So either they're going to meet on the fourth Thursday and it'll be a regular meeting, or they can have a special meeting on the fourth Wednesday.
No, they want to have their regular meetings. They want to change it to be on a Wednesday night.
Right. But I'm saying to get there,
Oh, I got you. Okay.
they either have to have a special meeting on a Wednesday, which is the night they want to meet on, and then adopt a new meeting schedule.
Okay.
And then that comes to us.
No, they adopt their own meeting schedule. You don't adopt theirs. Yeah.
Do we need to amend their charter?
Yeah, because it says Thursdays and they want to meet Wednesdays.
So we would amend it now to Wednesday, and then after they change it, we have to amend it again?
No, you can go ahead and make a change to their charter, whether they have recommended the change or not, because you are council.
The schedule, I don't think that they have actually done a schedule of the whole year. So,
So they could meet on, either they meet on the fourth Wednesday and it's a special meeting,
right.
and then they approve a new meeting schedule, or they meet on the fourth Thursday and adopt a new meeting schedule of Wednesdays. The fourth Wednesday.
Okay, so we have a motion to update the terms. Are we have a second? You already still have questions?
So I'm looking at the goals and objectives, and the first one about design and implement a social media presence for the village, it says create a social media policy. So isn't that already done? It feels like there's a mix of things that have been done versus maybe things to be done.
I think they have a Facebook policy, but not a social media policy. Is that right, Dan?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
if we sort of decide that it would all be sort of under the same umbrella. But I see what you're saying. It's like the whole charter, the things that the committee had hoped to do.
Because when I think about the goals, social media policy, make meetings more accessible, and then other opportunities, they sound fine. I think it's just more of the objectives and how that lives on as these things get accomplished. I mean, is this really the right way to do it?
Well, there is an ongoing effort, like the research best practices of other towns in an effort to communicate with residents. I mean, there even one of the committee members has been looking at other towns and talking to other towns about the way they hold coffee with the mayor and things like so. That is an ongoing practice of communicating with other towns for things that come up. Trying to make sure that we don't reinvent the wheel, so to speak. But I'll bring that to the next meeting and just say that maybe to look at the whole charter and see if the whole charter needs to be updated.
So we have a motion. Any more questions about the charter? Okay. So we have a motion and a second to amend to 3-year terms. All in favor? You abstaining?
Laura has
So that's the only change. Are we accepting the entire charter, or are we just accepting to change the term?
Just to change the terms. Okay, so unanimous. And then I'll entertain a motion to change the meeting schedule in the charter to Wednesday, the fourth Wednesday at 7.
motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Does the charter really have the date sets in the charter?
It just says that the fourth.
You're going to ask the question. I don't care.
It just says the committee shall meet at 7 p.m. on the 4th. It says Thursday each month needs to be changed to Wednesday.
Are you abstaining?
No, I mean, what I understand Shirley say is that the committee has to adopt changing their meeting date, not us through the charter.
Well, they've adopted calendar.
Yeah, there's kind of two pieces.
Because they've already been approved, those public meetings have already been approved and published. So they have to come up with their calendar for the rest of the week.
And just a reminder that it's to be submitted for special meetings.
Okay. So that's the direction and priorities for the communications committee. I think we just heard one to kind of review the whole charter. I know you and I have talked about the other. But council want to speak to what direction we see. I've talked to Deb and Francesca about that social media policy, or like a goal of how many times we post, where we're posting, what we're posting, and then I brought up the 25-year anniversary next July and some sort of media campaign in advance of that to share back some interesting things about Wesley Chapel. But when we don't approve things in the budget, some of the things that they have in their charter aren't really an option to proceed with. So what are some things that council, if any, would you like to see as committee work on? I mean, I think from the survey we heard more communication with residents, so that's why I definitely think the improved social media presence would help a lot.
I think it's just it's broader than that. I mean, it's like we got the social media and that, but the overall goal is to improve overall communications to residents and a forum for hearing from residents too, right? And then social media is just one channel in which to do that. So do we just want to limit it to social media, or make it more broadly developing on the communication strategy and plan?
I think that's just one of their three objectives, or well, one of their three goals. I mean, they've got a goal of researching best practices on towns and efforts to communicate with their residents. I think this is a good starting point. I think as they get more into it, I would feel better about them coming to us with recommendations on how to better communicate between ourselves and the residents as opposed to us trying to tell them.
No, I was just suggesting we need to make it broader than messaging needs to be specific. That's my point.
I think the committee just really wanted to see, because there hasn't been a lot of communication between the committee and council, where the council, because as you said, the committee did accomplish a lot of the goals that were set, a Facebook page and Instagram account and different things, the photographs of town hall and the mayor's wall, and a lot of the things that they wanted to do have been done. And I think that there was just do you have any thoughts? And the mayor was very kind to give some really good suggestions. Do you guys have any additional thoughts? It's just sort of the committee wasn't saying, tell us what to do. It was more like, do you have suggestions on top of what we're already looking at doing? If there's something that the committee is not doing, that you would like to see being done, then, now's the time to speak up and let us know.
I think you made a great move by kicking that voice lady off the committee. I mean, she was a pain to deal with.
Oh, she was awesome. As a vice chair, she was amazing. I hated her leaving.
Yeah, well, the communication typically is a one-way, not all going out. Us getting information out to the community.
Right.
Has there been any thought to figuring out new ways to get information into the council?
Well, there was a hope that the Facebook page would incite communications from the general public, and there have been, people commenting on different events that we've had in the village. But the survey that was taken, that was given, there has been some discussion on what are some other things that we could do to get some public input. As you know, it's not easy getting people to participate and to step up and,
Thursday from 1 to 8. Please stop by and give some input on our comprehensive plan.
Which, by the way, the voice lady that I just threw under the bus, she's my wife, so.
And she was the vice president of the committee. She was an awesome VP. So, that's basically it.
Any further comments, council?
If you have any suggestions, feel free to email Jessica or myself. I am the council rep, so.
David, do you want to see the chair come forward?
I would like to, I'm an old-fashioned guy. I do better seeing people face to face as opposed to reading an email. I think it would be good to have.
Francesca was coming to the meeting, and she was called out of town. She runs 2 businesses, and she's a very busy young lady. So
What happens, but I think it'd be good to have some periodic check-in, just to, like I said, to keep council in tune with what they have going on.
Right.
All right. Everybody good with that? Quarterly check-in? Okay. Also, Brandon will be here next month for his quarterly check-in. Talk about that. Okay, so that brings us to item 8A, the RFP for demo mediation. So we still do not have, or our stormwater engineer does not yet have the data collection results. He's expecting them mid-June, so hopefully they'll get the data mid-June and then they have to turn around and analyze it. So hopefully, what did he say? Mid-August? No, mid-July, August, that we would have a report. In the meantime, we do want to get started on getting this request for qualification out. If we can get it approved tonight, pending attorney approval, this will allow us to get the ball rolling on the RFQ. council had a chance to review, so do you have any questions?
My motion to approve the RFQ pending legal feedback for the RFQ. But I'd also like to add, not as part of the motion, that we incorporate any information we have with Parks and Recs.
We just got this before the meeting.
Keep everybody informed as we move forward.
So your motion is
To move forward with the RFQ pending legal feedback.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
We have termination laws.
That's basically the very end.
This is not a contract, it's just an RFQ.
Brad, do you have any input? We asked Brad to do any input on this. I know he's just had a few seconds.
From what I can see, it looks, I mean, if I terminate on the back here, let's wait.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. We did submit the grant for this. I'm not especially hopeful, as they really did focus on underserved and overburdened communities and geographical locations that we are not a part of. But we did work with Danny and got that submitted. But we will not hear for several.
Not her task.
Yeah, so we'll see. Keep your finger crossed. Item 8. So Brad, if you want to come up and talk to us. While Brad's coming up, I'm just going to tell council we did talk about with Brandon the National Night Out. We'll definitely need a blessing from council to move forward. But Brandon really wanted to see it on Tuesday, October 4th, 6 to 8 p.m. Brandon has a lot of the sheriff's office have a lot of things they can bring to such an event. The town has done several in the past. And with the sheriff's office carrying the brunt of a lot of the cost. The last two combined, the town only spent about $511. So they were very, but Brandon's talked about like the SWAT team and like all the stuff he could bring in for that event. I thought maybe if I don't forget, we could ask Aston tomorrow for the use of their parking lot. So we have that as an option. Starbucks is a national partner, so that might tie in well. But that was just my thought. And Brad will talk to them. But it won't just be a Parks and Rec event. We can look at council sponsored things.
Just a quick question. So National Night Out spent for, and Brandon said he can bring the SWAT team and other things, but wasn't all the other towns in the county be doing this, Jim?
Most of them are doing it in August, right, Cheryl?
Yeah, the standard is the first Tuesday in August, but I don't know exactly how it happened, but they added a first Tuesday in October for some Texas places. And the weather is so bad here in August, so we thought we would do it in October, and it really gives you a bonus because you won't be competing with everybody else for
That was my concern.
the different public safety.
When they be spread across the county at the same time.
And he did not want to do it in August.
You're up, Brad.
Okay. Let me touch real quickly on the communications committee discussion. Park and Rec really is trying to establish a working relationship. We have not been successful yet, and I missed the last meeting because it got rescheduled, and I was thinking it was Thursday again, and it was Tuesday. But anyway, my fault. But in either case, what we really have been trying for the last couple of months to establish that relationship. Because you can have, I can attend their meeting, or they can attend, one of them or two can attend our meeting. It's when you have more than a quorum that you can't mix them without calling for a special meeting. So, and given the interest in Park and Rec and getting a number of events, which I'll talk about next, this year, including National Night Out, etc., that's going to be a part of the key of getting people involved, getting the word out, communicating, come meet your neighbors, whatever. And I think that's important. The Rock and Roller Car Show, a lot of lessons learned, which was good. Nothing necessarily went drastically wrong, fortunately. We did contract for 4 deputies. We got 2, for instance. There were 3 that signed up. One at the last minute couldn't come, and we didn't get any notification about it. So, fortunately, we had to do it for crossing people, so it was fine. Attendance was around 500, which is actually kind of low. 31 cars were entered. One of the lessons learned is that the first Saturday of every month there's something called Cars and Coffee. It's held over, I can't remember the road now. It's towards the airport off 45 on the west side. They get like 500 to 1,000 cars, and it runs from like 7 to 12 or something to that degree. So, not the first Saturday of any month in the future. But we did raise $785 that we are aware of. It does not for the Simplify Fund. It does not include anyone who used the QR code. So that was a positive. The DJ, who we were able to get fairly late in the process, was terrific. Did a great job. Right volume. Actually helped. We had I can't remember the name now, but Sandra Bradford and her theater group volunteered to do some show tunes, and they did the last hour. And he actually was able to get them about halfway through it. Their portable mic system was not good, so they were able to use his. They were actually quite good. Unfortunately, the cars had all left shortly after the trophies at about 1:45, 2 o'clock. So, people missed some really good voices there. We could have had our own America's Got Talent or something like that. So, I would also mention, I think Chad Greer is hopefully on your agenda to be appointed. He volunteered Saturday a few hours as well, so we got to meet him. Be a great asset. I mean, he applied anyway, but I think he'd be a great asset to the team. Committee. Amanda mentioned the National Night Out and having it that first Tuesday in October. But before that, kind of the idea is that the Park and Rec Committee is thinking for this year is September 30th. You've heard about the movie Night Out. That's really with the county Park and Rec team coming here and doing the presentation. We'd like to add a little bit more to that, either bag popcorn or cotton candy or something. But again, we'll be talking more about that. That event will be here. We already talked through that one. The October 4th National Night Out, location DBD, as Amanda mentioned. We have done that in the past, in August, in the parking lot over Target's parking lot, and it was hot. I volunteered for the dunk tank one year just to keep cooler. It's very dirty water, though. October 29th, we're looking at doing a fall bash. Yes, we typically do the Halloween type theme. And then in December sometime, we're trying to pick a date. We're checking the dates around us. But a Christmas event, Coco and Carol sing again. I think that'll be a nice event. Then we would go into Easter again with Southbrook. Again, another rock and roller car show event. That would be in June, not the first Saturday. We'd like to think about some kind of music event somewhere sandwiched in there. We'll figure that out. And we also talked about either incorporating with one of the events or of its own something called, we kind of came up with this little title, Bark in the Park or something like that, where we could have dog adoptions and those kinds of things, which we had actually done. I think we did that as part of National Night Out one year, actually, believe it or not, but could be done nicely at the park. So Amanda already mentioned, the mayor, that July 15th, and right above her head there, 1998 was when we were founded, so That will be 2 weeks into the next fiscal year. So we could be coming back in May or June and saying, in order for us to get prepared for that event, depending on what council wants to do, we'll obviously communicate and coordinate with you and see how big or small we want to do it. But we may need a little more budget at that point. So, and I believe that's what I have. So, any particular questions? Yes, sir.
Well, the sheriff's deputies, you said you ordered 4, you only ended up with 3, but then the last minute one canceled. And I know that's not within our control or your control. What happens, do we have a contingency if we ask for 4, none show up? What do we do? I mean, is there something in place where they would let us know prior to they drive up and said, we're only going to have 2 here tonight?
Cheryl and I will talk about you.
Let me explain on that. First off, the person that handles off-duty deputies, they just changed hands. The old person is no longer doing it. It was a brand new person. He had 4 signed up, which is what we had asked for. And then one told him, I can't make it. Can you repost it? And he reposted it, but it did not get full. That same day, there was a big event in Indian Trail, and I'm sure every deputy was working over at Indian Trail. Last minute, the other deputy had a family emergency and told him, and he forgot.
Okay. Well,
So it's just a comedy of error.
I know stuff happens, so the 2 questions are, 1, did we only pay for the 2 we got?
Yes.
And 2, is there a way in the future, it's not a last minute thing that we find out we're short?
Hopefully, and I will say that he apologized profusely. Yeah.
I just want to know if there's any kind of policy in place so that we would know prior to half an hour before the event starts that we're going to be short.
They should let us know. I can't.
Was that system that we sign up for, or is that can we view in there? Because I know you do that.
I had looked in it, and it was full when I looked. It had 4.
Okay,
and
but
then
I mean, up until the couple days.
you know,
the day before.
you know, how often would I check? You know.
Well, no, mainly, like I would say, a Wednesday or Thursday before. So,
Well, I had checked a few days before. Yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing we had, I thought we had signed up for 2 sinks and 2 porta pots for the event, and we only got 1 sink and 1 porta pot.
We got 2. They told me we got a sink, a regular porta pot, and a handicap porta pot.
Which is not what we were looking for.
And that's what we paid for, and that's what we ordered.
Well, typically when we have events, we've already got 1 handicapped porta pot. We would normally get 2 additional porta pots that are regular and 2 sinks.
Well, from now on, I'll ask Brad to send me an email and tell me exactly what they want. But that was what I had.
So what we ordered and what we got is right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Did we ever fix the problem with the handicapped porta pot that was in the wrong spot? Has that ever been?
They said that they did not move that porta pot.
Well,
It's been moved.
it's been moved. It's not something people can just pick it up and move it and put it down. Things full of water. So somebody had to have moved it. But
Well, and they questioned whether it was vandalism because we had that happen one other time. So, but they said that they did not move it. They just brought these others.
How do we get it repositioned?
the question is not
What happened? What do we do go forward?
Right. And the reality is, if you were in a wheelchair right now and you tried to go to the handicapped bathroom, you couldn't open the door because of the way the unit's positioned. It just needs to be fixed. It doesn't need to be a long, drawn out.
Right. But it's like who's responsible? They're a business, and you know.
Well, next time they're out, just have them relocated. John will probably be there, so you know.
I'll ask him on Friday. I'll be there Friday morning. If I see him come, I'll say, dude, can you do me a favor? Just move that one.
Drag it where it's supposed to be. Okay. Not a big deal. But I'm glad we're not getting into the calling and saying, hey, I'm handicapped and I can't get in the handicapped bathroom. Okay. I'm off my soapbox.
Any questions or concerns?
So just looking at your list of events that we would bear the brunt of the cost for, the Fall Bash, Christmas, Easter sort of, and the car show. So the 4 key events. that we would
Significant
call-
events.
Yes, but we would want other events to where someone else would bear most of the cost.
Or there'd be minimal cost. It depends.
Right, the movie night or whatever.
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure I understood that right.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions for Brad?
When did you say the Christmas event was going to be tentatively?
Early December, I think
Early
we're
December.
talking about the second second Saturday in December, but I don't think we finalized it.
Did you have big council on 5K or 6K? It's from, right. We originally talked about a 6K event at the
Yes.
park with Southwood Church. They were no longer doing that.
We're gonna do it all.
No, they did it. It's already over.
They did it.
They did it on their own property.
Right, that's what my update was last month, I think.
Didn't know the event already happened.
Yep.
No, they just stayed on their own property.
We do have the appointment,
Yeah. And is that the mayor or?
the mayor.
So I appoint Chad Greer to the Park and Rec Committee.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Brad. Thank you to the committee for our hard work.
And happy pre-Independence Day.
I
To Schuylkill.
It's nice. Brad, while you're up here, one last question.
Yes, sir.
Any input on the budget before we?
Oh, I did, thank you. I did want to, I know there was a little bit of discussion before the meeting about the rock cameras, that the meeting that the mayor set up with staff and John, myself. Very informative, very minimal infrastructure is what I like to say, but yet a lot of coordination efforts, and we kind of prompted the discussion by talking to the deputy and Brandon, saying, okay, give us some help here. What can help you the most? And they said, and he kind of hesitated because they don't want to be salespeople. I understand that, but at the same time, this system integrates with so many other things because so many other people, so many subdivisions and parks and some towns are using them for other purposes. And they're, I think you all got an email from him that summed it up very well. But it was from the mayor, sorry, was the solar powered. They take they're still shots, they're not movies, but 7 to 12 photographs of each motion that's detected. Depends on how fast it's moving, obviously. 7 if it's moving fast, 12 if it's moving slow. It stores that data for 30 days, but it has plate character recognition, but it even goes beyond that. So if you know a particular car has been causing, resident occupants been causing issues, and you know the plate, it's in a database that if that camera catches it, it runs it against that database and sends an alert to the deputies. So we don't have to monitor it. We don't have to alert the deputies. We don't have to play cop, which we shouldn't be. I was very impressed with it. St. John's Forest actually just they just found a stolen car that way. They had one of their entrance, for instance.
How was it determined how many cameras we would get?
He's coming out here this week, Wednesday. Going to meet same committee members down there that can make it. We're thinking probably because of the distance, 2 at the parking lot and 1 in the entrance, exit, whichever you want to call it. That's what we're thinking, but we'll wait till the expert takes a look at it.
It doesn't even need a plate. It's got the vehicle equivalent of facial recognition.
Right.
So they've programmed it with all the dimensions of tail lights, headlights.
And their configuration.
If the vehicle's got a roof rack or bumper stickers, it can learn the vehicle's identity. They can switch the plates out on the car. Doesn't matter, we'll still get the car.
It's a lot more sophisticated than I thought. The gentleman who owns the company, not that I'm plugging the company, but I thought it was interesting. He did the same thing we're all trying to do years ago, and they came back with some ridiculous estimate from the companies that existed, and that's why he started this company. So, and this is at the beginning of the company, he said he was using some.
He used an Android, he's a computer software engineer, and he used an Android phone.
Yeah.
And set up in his own HOA a system, and they busted people using this, and then he turned it into a business.
So,
That's
Here's my
now
question.
nationwide.
Why 3 cameras, not why 5 cameras, why not,
That's what the experts will tell them, right?
That's what it is. You can leave it up to the expert. It's just our general thought based on conversation was that you would need, at least one in each end of the parking lot, and then because you want to also catch the act of the vandalism. So, combination is what I think is going to be strong. There is an installation fee. It was all laid out in the memo, but then that installation fee is a one-time for each camera, and then the $2,500 currently, at least, that's the price, $2,500 a year per camera. But you don't own the camera, they do. If something goes wrong with the camera, they replace it. Even you don't pay for the poles. If there's no pole in the vicinity, they put the pole in and mount the camera.
But the village owns the data. So the village has to decide who they're going to give access to.
We actually have a camera policy, so we
Yes.
just need to review it, make sure it still stands.
That would fit this.
But the equipment itself will always belong to the company.
It's a lease deal.
It's a lease.
I was very impressed. I went very skeptical, and I was very
Yeah,
impressed.
it's got to have, and that was my thought going to this meeting. It has to have added value, and I understood from the council's concerns during the budget discussion. We were just trying to put a number out there till we got to look at more. But then with this integration into the deputies being able to get the information and going against the database, I know I said this before, there's just several additional banks for the buck, is what I'll just say, which we wouldn't have with any kind of standalone system or anything like that.
Is there a long-term contract or?
They prefer a 2-year contract, but they would do one. If that's how, I know that's how some municipalities have their budgeting set up. Based on what the sheriff said in the meeting we had prior with him and his boss, like, this problem was not going away. Like, there's a gang of, they know who's doing it, they need help, they got to find these people. This just seems like a very active way an active and an affordable way. The numbers we've heard in the past are a lot more than $8,500.
And the gang that are doing it keep changing vehicles, the police know that, and they know currently they're looking for a Silver Pacifica. So they could program in Silver Pacifica. The minute Silver Pacifica drives in a park, Bing branded cell phone can Bing a Silver Pacifica just entered front of the park. 12 seconds after the car drives in the park.
So I'm assuming Parks and Rec will be coming back next month with the proposal.
Amanda's making a proposal.
I was going to in the budgets.
You've got the budget's issue to deal with this month, so yes, we will anyway, because we'll discuss it. I've already sent out a little bit of information. I asked them to send us any kind of information presentation that they could, so that I could share that with the Park and Rec committee, but absolutely.
If that's how council wants to handle it, I was going to ask that we put it in the budget for next year. But if you want to wait until Parks and Rec brings it to us, that's fine.
Well, you could establish the budget, but not necessarily fund it until you're satisfied that fund it. What I mean is buy it, or get into the contract.
But how can we do that at this point? We're thinking that maybe 3 cameras. To Mike's point, there may be 6, but they say, well, the minimum. What if they say 1? My thoughts are at this point, I don't know that we've got enough information to build it into the budget for this year. I'd like to. I don't know whether we've got enough information.
No, but even if this is just my thought, if you establish a cap that you feel comfortable
Budget not to exceed.
spending, not to exceed, and hopefully it'll be below that.
Go ahead and get the line out of it there.
Well, I was also thinking, let's say as an example, we start with 3 cameras, but we want more. Next budget, we have more cameras, but we also have more in the budget.
And I'm sorry. They did have a 195% retention rate because people see how effective it is and they come back and they want more.
So a couple of things, kind of tying on to Mike's earlier question about why the number of cameras. I'd like to understand their perspective on why their recommendation for the space. about that the data is retained for 30 days. Is there a data cap? So it's limitless data because it is capturing for several.
It's in the cloud.
It's cloud's still not free, but because I heard you say it's
But it's
capturing
incorporated into their number and
multiple shots for motion. So if you're going to have a lot of cameras, you're just going to have a lot of activity going back and forth. And how usable is that when you're picking up people and cars from a data perspective? To understand what we're getting into, because then there's a cost to evaluate all this.
So it will be triggered by a pedestrian or someone on a bicycle, even in the dark. It will be triggered and it will take the images. It will take more images if people are in the field of capture of the motion sensor. And they told us 7 images was for a car doing 100 miles an hour. It takes 7 images for a car doing 100 miles an hour.
I'm just thinking that the more cameras you have, the more you have, and then somebody manually has to go through and look at all those. So how is the data actually useful and usable?
It really wasn't manual. You can input, I want a white Toyota.
No, we're talking people. People aren't Toyotas. I just want to have
You
more
can play in a
detail.
time frame and you can say, I don't want to look at cars, I
Right.
don't want to look at bicycles, I only want to look at pedestrians.
There is search
And it will look
criteria.
between this period and that period. It will then only show you the images of pedestrians between that time and that time.
It'll filter, there are multiple ways to filter the data.
And then my last observation is it feels like the village is being asked to fund capabilities for the sheriff's department because of them asking us to have all this integration with everything else. They're essentially asking other entities to fund their capabilities for surveillance. That's just a perspective that I have.
Well, Laura, to that point, the question I was going to ask next is, have we or can we, at minimum, ask the sheriff's department to offset some of the costs?
We can ask, but I will tell you that our meeting with Brandon and his boss started with, when you going to get more deputies? And when I said, not this year.
I think if you look at the overall picture, the sheriff's department is designed to create a safer environment in Union County, and I think this will help to a great degree. And if we can say, look, why don't you help us with 30% of the cost of this system, because it is helping everybody in Union County. And if they say no, they say no, but at least we could ask.
Well, were you going to ask them to participate in the the $40,000 thing you were talking about? Were you going to ask them to offset that?
What, 40,000?
But this is built in a real-time database. It's data
Yeah.
acquisition continuously that it's using, and it's trying to do that more broadly, very aggressively across the county from a data gathering, surveillance perspective. So it's a huge benefit to them, much more so than to the village, frankly, to have any data acquisition sites in here.
Hence asking them to help with the cost.
I can ask, but I am completely 100% confident.
Whereas to Deb's point, an independent camera that's just for us, just ours, no.
Has honestly been a waste of money. There's one sitting here that surveys town hall, and to my knowledge, we've never looked at it.
Well, we've never had an issue where nobody's done it through the window or anything, where we've had to go back and look at, they're trying to catch somebody breaking into the town hall.
I know, but now we do have an issue at the park. So we need a solution.
I agree. The lady who had her first home on her front seat said she'd never come back to the park again. And that really hit home because I want her to come to the park. I want her to enjoy the park with kids and family. But, we've created this situation where we need to resolve the problem so she does feel good about bringing her family back. And this is definitely a step in the right direction.
I disagree. We do not create the problem.
Well,
the problem is people not using common sense with what they believe in cars.
I agree with that point specifically. And I wish we didn't have to live in a world where we had to have security cameras, but unfortunately.
And just for the public's knowledge, we pay over $100,000 for Brandon every year. We also pay, as a Wesley Chapel resident, you pay additional taxes to the Union County Sheriff's Office. So as a village, we pay an additional $540,000 to the Sheriff's Office. So when I asked him what we got for that much money, he said a salt deputy. So we pay $100,000 for Brandon. And then,
contract.
yes, and then we pay $540,000 for a zone deputy, although that is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Whereas I understand what you're saying 100%. I also would say it is the local government's perspective to be responsible for protecting its citizens. So you've got to do that in a very measured, intelligent way. And this seemed like a really good, I would agree with Amanda. Any reservation I had, they were prepared for. I would say maybe if we got their early iterations, maybe not. I think where it stands right now, and hearing the success stories they're already having, and this one I was talking about was less than 3 weeks ago.
There was one last week in Indian Trail where the block was falling apart.
It's an active system, which is a little different than having something here, having somebody come back, having to look at the pictures, have to whatever. I mean, you will have to do that on a break-in on somebody you don't know that's not in the list and not in the system. But, the deputies can also do that, and there's a way to filter the data, which is also key. So you can kind of cut down all of the hours and hours of potential.
If we had 6 of our own cameras and we know something happened in a time period, somebody's going to have to sit and watch through all the video footage from all the cameras to pull the data. This system allows them to just filter, do a database search, and find exactly what we're looking for.
Are there any negatives to the system?
The one I raised
my tag expires.
The one I raised was a fraud amendment issue because basically you have the ability, if I want to know when David's coming to that park or what David's up to, I can put David's license plate number in there, and every time you pass one of these flock cameras, bing, I'm going to see David.
But you're not going to have that power to do that.
No, unless you've had a violation with the car. And I wouldn't even say now, they're not necessarily looking for those kinds of violations.
Well, let me ask this question. When the expert comes out later this week, next week, whatever it is, are we focusing on just the parking lot and just the cars, or are we focusing on the security of the overall park?
Parking lot cars. It's a car-focused system, though it does capture pedestrians and bicycles as well. But we're focusing where we've been having an issue, which is break-ins to people's cars.
To your other point, David, the only thing we were concerned about was the entrance where the power is, but they can connect to actual hard electrical lines, which we do have down by the gate if necessary, but they only need 3 hours of direct sunlight a day to power the camera for a period of time, quite a long period of time. So that was impressive as well. I kind of was expecting more of a limitation.
Environmental friendly.
So, based on this, we'll have Parks and Rec discuss it at their next meeting and bring our recommendation back to council.
Sure. Absolutely.
And Brad, if you ask your Park and Rec people, they can go to the Flock website, and it may not be the presentation he gave us, but there's a lot of the same info is there.
Or go to Facebook and put in block safety, and you'll see where they're tagged on
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Successful cases.
So do we alter the budget to do at least a minimum of 3 cameras?
Subject council.
Well, I think given how time sensitive this issue is, I would rather see us do something, even if it's on a small scale, that we could expand later if need be. And if we have a general idea of what a 3-camera system is, I think we should consider that before we approve the budget.
It's a set fee per camera, and I have not heard, it doesn't mean you can ask again, but any buy 3, get 1 free, or get 4 for the cost of...
If we have a ballpark
Once
idea.
you do this, it will be a takeaway if you ever want to stop. And so you're committing to $8,000 to $10,000 or more every year. If you add more cameras, an ongoing cost of $10,000 or more every year. And you'll reach the point of like, hey, if anything ever happened, we want to stop it. Then you have to deal with the PR that you took it away.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Or the PR that you didn't do anything.
1 year commitment.
Or the PR that you didn't do anything. I mean, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but it's almost a no-win situation. And I wouldn't say it that way because I think it's definitely no win if you do nothing. It's a possible win if you do something.
There's also a 10 to 12 week lead time, so
Yes.
even if you order tomorrow, it'll be 3
Mayor
months.
had that every year.
3 months.
Dina from Waxhaw says that they recently had a lot of car lock-ins, break-ins. But before installing cameras, they were having issues every other week. Now it's every 3 to 6 months, and it helped them with vandalism. So they're also looking into a campaign, which might be something the communications committee can look about educating the public and what to do if you see something suspicious. And Charlotte Mecklenburg also did that.
So I'd be happy with budgeting at least a minimum amount for the starter system of 3 cameras, provided Cheryl can tell us where to pull the money from.
Are you talking about this year or next year?
Starting in starting in July 1st.
Okay.
Is there anything left in this budget cycle?
There's not. I looked at it. There's not a whole lot. There's a little bit here and a little bit there.
But Cheryl said 10 to 12 a week
Yeah.
lead time, so you're not going to get it.
Why don't you just wait a month? I mean, really, at this
I
point.
wouldn't wait. Because it's a 10 to 12 week lead time.
Well, I mean,
Ready.
if you.
But if we have to approve the budget starting July 1st tonight, the time to move the money around is down.
Well, you can, or you can just make a budget amendment at your July meeting, and you know how many cameras you want to put. And July 13th, you can order cameras. Yeah.
All right. You okay with that, Brad?
Sure. Finance also.
Yeah.
Council, are you comfortable with that?
And I would also ask that in that delay, that we somehow contact the Union County Sheriff's Department and say, hey, look, council's all for this floor system, and we're going to move forward, and how much are you going to help us cost-wise?
Oh, I'll ask. I'll put it in my...
And just say, as this benefits the county as a whole and helps you tremendously as a new tool in your arsenal, what can you do to help us offset the cost?
Who knows? Maybe the sheriff's office knows of a grant. There's a lot of grants out there, and maybe they know of something that would help with that sort of a public safety thing.
I will ask.
Flock does offer a mobile rapid deployment camera. You don't have to put the post in and all that. You don't have to install it. It's like a mobile one, but I guess.
I see like at parking lots at the mall at Christmas time, they put them up in those cherry pickers or whatever.
That kind of thing.
Well, I will ask the sheriff's office after we meet with this guy this week and have an idea of what exactly we're looking at. What they're
Right. Anything else on the budget, Brad? For the Parks and Rec?
Any questions for Brad? All right, thank you, Brad. We appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
All right. So that brings us to the quasi-judicial public hearing regarding SUP 14-1, Amendment 22-01 for Arlington Christian Academy Christian Baptist Church to relocate a modular classroom as part of the project. So I will I'll have Bob introduce this, and then you want to open it.
Thank you. In 2014, Arbor Christian Academy, along with its, at that time, landlord, Central Baptist Church, located at 4823 Waxhaw Indian Trail Road, received permission for the permanent placement of a mobile classroom on the combined property. In the interim, of course, I think you probably recall that the property was rezoned. Arbor has actually purchased some land from the church with the intent of building a permanent structure for their campus there, while still remaining a tenant of the church partially in some of their buildings, but to have their own building. In preparation from that, the church approached me late last year, I believe, to discuss some of the plans around that. And one of the things that needed to be done was to prepare the site by relocating the mobile classroom to prepare them for the possibility of constructing the permanent school building on the land that they purchased from the church. Due to the specificity of the previous special use permit that was issued in terms of the location, it did show a location on that when it was approved back in 2014. And even prior to that, in 2009, the original permit for that I felt that it was in the best interest of everyone to have that come back before the council for modification. Just so there's no question that moving it from one portion of the site to the other was within the bounds of what they were authorized to do. And so worked with the church to get the application submitted in time for them to hopefully have that relocated prior to school starting, I believe, this year. And there were some representatives from the church here this evening. We held a public information meeting with the planning board back in April, I believe. And nobody showed up to that to speak other than the applicants. But the applicants are here this evening. They did submit an application jointly. The location for the relocated mobile classroom would be on the property of Central Baptist Church, and so both entities were applicants or signatories to the application that is being heard before you tonight. I did in your application include some information that was previously submitted back in 2014 regarding the location of the structure as well as some photographs of it. Yes, sir.
To clarify, this is a relocation of a temporary structure. Will that structure then be removed after construction of the permanent structure?
Let's ask the applicant that once they've been sworn in.
Okay.
Once we've all been sworn in.
Is that your introduction?
That's the introduction.
Okay. So I will open the public hearing for the SUP, and then anybody on the applicant side or an opposing side would please step up to be sworn in. Anybody who's going to talk or answer a question. You have to swear to tell the whole truth.
Come on over here.
It's okay to get sworn in and then don't say anything too.
Yeah, better do it listening.
Tonight we're swearing. If you would put your left hand in the Bible and raise your right hand, and if everybody will do you all at once. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, and I need all your names.
Yolanda Baker.
I know you. Thank you.
Simon Conrad, spelled S-I-M-E-O-N.
Wait.
S-I-M-E-O-N.
Okay.
Conrad, C-O-N-R-A-D.
Thank you.
Larry Helms.
Thank you.
You all set, Cheryl?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Go away.
Okay. I'm Yolanda Baker with Arthur Christian Academy, Mayor Fuller, Council, Planning, everyone in attendance here. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come to talk before you today. We have Larry Helms, Central Baptist Church, and Simon Myers Chapman, who is our contracted general contractor for the project overall. So we are here as Vaughn shared to seek hopefully approval to move the existing quad, relocate that a few hundred feet behind the existing church office. I do have plans. Did you all get copies of one of each? So as Don shared, our intent is to be able to relocate that existing quad a few hundred feet behind the current church office. So if you're facing the property from the road, there's a white house nearest to what looks like the well right there, closest to the roundabout. We have purchased, Arthur Christian Academy has actually purchased that acre. So the church office sits on actually our acre now, but the modular will be moved directly behind the church office there. And our intent is to prepare to be able to build our own building in place of the quad. But either way, it needs to be moved over just for flow and safety of the children as we look to do.
So that's the question I asked.
Yes.
Now that you're sworn in, will that temporary structure be a temporary stay in place, or will that just be there until the final structure is
I think we would seek to keep it there through construction, through our second phase. We need that additional space, and because of the proposed location of the new building, all of our upper school is moving to that location. That current quad is actually being used for our upperclassmen, so we would use that probably as a flex space and or nature center. You know, our school is very, those are nature focused, so we may use that quad as a multi-purpose space throughout construction through phase, hopefully phase 2.
How recent was it that you purchased the property next door?
We just purchased it within the last 6 months.
Okay. One of my concerns when the last time we saw you, and I gave you guys credit for how many people you have through your facility, and you never cause a traffic jam. Yeah. And that is, and I just want to hope that as you expand and as you move forward and as you move buildings around, that record will hold.
That record is going to hold. I have been out in that carpool myself, Mr. Cook, making sure that no car is on that road. No, seriously, we are actually designing the property and the proposed buildings with that in mind to make sure that we keep traffic off of the road and no backup there. And keeping in mind the changing landscape runs.
You don't know how big a deal that is for us. Because we run into the problems and other problems where they say, you can't do this, it will add to traffic. And like, you guys can add as long as I don't start getting phone calls to say,
right.
What do you guys let them do?
Right.
And it is in the plans of the DOT to extend the parking lot and space to get the cars in and out.
Right.
So all that is.
So you guys have thought ahead with all that stuff.
Oh yeah, we are extending in front of the church. So where the current church office is, the parking lot will be expanded across there to keep all of that traffic off the road. So working with the church in partnership to make sure that we can utilize all of that land as possible for parking and or carpool lane there. That's our plan.
And with the purchase of this new property, are you doing any kind of new exit off of the other road or anything?
We are currently looking at the traffic plan. The majority, we will still leverage the roundabout, come in basically the same way and exit a right turn out. So we're trying to keep the flow of traffic coming in and out and keep it flowing. So that we don't
The one thing we're being asked tonight
is about
it has nothing to do with traffic. It's just about physically relocating a modular unit from its current location to a new location that may or may not be permanent, dependent upon your future use.
Correct.
So that's right? That's the extent.
Right. And the reason I was asking about the flow of traffic is if they're putting it someplace where eventually they would have an exit or a cut through or parking.
So it sets further back into the property.
Okay. Right.
So the movement will not, to essentially probably answer both, the movement of the modular will not impact traffic at all. We're using the same carpool lane and also, as Simon just said, accounting for that as we look at the new proposed plan. I think other than that, the use of the building will remain the same. We're not adjusting student count. We're not adding bathrooms. That current quad has no bathrooms. We don't have to tie into the septic there. We're literally lifting and shifting the building a few hundred feet to the left behind the church office. So the use of it will remain the same. No impacts, no changes to that.
And is the county going to give their blessing as well?
We do not apply for the modular.
So you are our blessing?
Yes. Yes. I'll also just note that I think a positive for this too, not that anybody probably notices it now because we've been very intentional about making that modular look like a building. We have, plant and foliage outside of it. It will actually be further out of visibility to the public in the road. So I think that's, a huge positive, and that we were intentional about where we're going to place it.
Along with the previous SUP, was there anything that spoke to landscaping?
No. So the original approval was back in 2009 for a period of 5 years. And I think a lot of the information that would have surrounded that has been kind of lost to time. In 2014, really the only thing that was being asked for was the ability to extend its presence on the site because it was going to expire, the original approval. And at that time, in 2014, the council granted the extension with no deadline for final removal. So there was no time. It was approved to be extended, but with no time frame for ever removing it from the site.
And no modifications made to the previous SUP?
No. The application was only regarding the time limit of it.
Are there any concerns about damaging the modular when you move it?
We, through Myers, they have contracted with a modular engineer and they have done an initial evaluation of the building. There doesn't seem to be any concern relocating it and any damage to it during relocation.
Yes, I mean those things are built so that they can be moved. And I guess in the world of modular buildings, it's from 2009, so it's really not considered that old.
If you find any muskrats, we love muskrats. Bring them down.
I'll deliver the box to John.
I'll deliver to John. Whatever we find that you need, you
Just
can
take the
have.
box, leave the lid off, and put it right in front of where John works every day. And he'll find it. I'll stay in there.
We're praying we find nothing. But you're all welcome to come out and observe when we move. I'm going to go out and see if we move, so it'll be interesting. Thank you, Mr. Field.
Any further questions about that? Anyone else like to say anything?
If you want to cover it.
So I think we'll leave the public hearing open while we're doing it, so we can ask questions if it comes up. Is that acceptable? Okay. So as y'all know, this is a quasi-judicial process. We have to deliberate each finding of fact, and then make an overall approval or denial. So the first finding of fact is the use will not materially endanger the public health, safety, or welfare located or proposed and developed according to the submitted plan and not create dangerous traffic conflict points, noxious odors, sounds, glare, or environmental hazards.
I would say they've met that criteria successfully.
I would say there's no modification to the previous SUP, so this finding of fact will be supported, but I need council to make a motion on the vote.
So motion, yeah.
Okay. That was a whole lot easier. I was planning on reading it, so.
Any further discussion? All in favor of this finding?
Who seconded it?
David.
Thank you.
All right. Finding of fact number 2 is the use meets all required conditions and specifications.
I think they met that as well, so motion on that as well.
So you're saying there ain't no modifications to the previous SUP?
Correct.
Okay, so that was Mike's motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Third finding of fact, the use will not substantially injure the value of the adjoining or the property and will not hinder future development potential of the property, production, or incongruous land use or incompatible development scale or objective.
Have there been any communications with immediate neighbors?
We had some initial communication when we came back the first time, but not about this. So we haven't had any feedback or negative.
Ron, have we notified the surrounding properties?
Notified each person, each property owner adjoining the entire property, including the church property, the larger church property, newspaper ads, both of these things twice, and have had signs out there for a lot. Amy received one phone call. A lady called me or wanted to talk to me about it, and I called and left her a message and never got a call back from her, so I don't know what
Okay.
her. I think she was her Amy's email to me stated that she was interested in the plans of the school. Didn't express anything beyond that.
And these are public? These plans are made public?
They were made public at the public information meeting, to which the applicants were the only.
So from a legal perspective, we've done everything we need to do to
Yes,
give the neighbors an opportunity to give feedback or
twice.
So to me, it again sounds like they aren't making any modification to the previous SUPs.
Right.
So no motion.
This motion that we approve this finding of fact.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Okay, that moves to number 4, which is the location and character of the use is developed according to the plan as submitted and approved in harmony with the area in which it is located, will not disrupt the integrity of existing land use districts, and will be in general conformity with this chapter and the village's land development plan.
Considering they're not adding anything new, they're just taking the structure and moving it from one place to another, I think that answers that question automatically, so I would say approved based on that.
There's no change from the previous SUP.
Correct.
So that's your motion.
So motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, number 5. Availability of services including water, wastewater treatment, gas, stormwater, and fire.
And you said you have to check with the county that.
No, there's no water.
There's no water or anything associated.
There's no water or sewer in the building.
I understand it, but the environment, I mean, I went to go put the equivalent of a little 10-foot by 10-foot building in a parking lot, and they made me go through the whole process, making sure that the environmental guys didn't want to make sure I wasn't putting it on top of the septic system or on top of anything else. So there is a little bit of hoop you have to jump through on that.
We believe we've done our due diligence though, because we don't suspect any concerns there. It's not tied to water, sewer, or stormwater. We're also making sure that it's not placed on the repair field for the septic or.
That would be my
That's the
environmental.
whole full disclosure. My husband works for the county. I'm checking off all the boxes.
Most people say, look, there's a little grass in the area over there, let's go put it over there, and then they find out later,
Right.
That's the reserve for the septic field, or that's the, so you know what I mean.
I know
Everybody knows.
exactly what you mean, which is why it's going to be over here, off the repair field, away from everything. So,
Thank you for clarifying
you're
that.
welcome.
So given that, I think they've met that requirement as well.
There's no change from the previous SUP.
Is that a sub motion?
So motion.
Uh,
Let David have it. Let David have it, I'll second it.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? We're not going to this happen.
I advise that judicial, please.
Number 6 is access to public streets and the adequacy of these streets to carry anticipated traffic and on-site circulation, both pedestrian and on-site, off-site vehicular traffic circulation patterns.
I think we've already talked about that in depth, so I'd say that we meet that requirement, so motion.
There's no change in the enrollment or the expected use of any of the buildings or facilities to increase demand.
So motion.
Do I have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Number 7, adequate safety and emergency services. Police, fire, and
There's no change to the use of the building or anything other than the physical location of it.
Still handicap accessible.
Still handicap accessible. We'll actually be, we can actually access the building from our current parking lot. We're now even closer through the church drive path, which goes straight to the lot.
So do I have a motion?
So motion.
A motion that it does not require any modification to the previous SUP approval?
Correct.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. So now I need an overall motion from council approving SUP 14-1, amendment 2022-01.
So motion.
have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Other than closing the hearing, is that sufficient?
We're good. We just have to get it written up. Once it's written up, then we will ask you both of you to sign it before it's filed with the Register of Deeds, and then you'll be able to get the zoning permit to relocate the modular classroom.
So I will close the public hearing, and I will thank you for being so pleasant to work with.
Thank you, Mayor, full council, have a good evening.
We're gonna hold you to that traffic thing.
I'm not be able to show my face to cookies and cocoa. I'm not going to do that, so I'll stay on it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right. Okay, so now we have the proposed, so we have the public hearing on the proposed 2022-23 fee schedule. So Cheryl has published the budget and the fee schedule. So I will open the public hearing. We have one resident signed up. Who will come to the podium, Mr. Hill, and state your name and address for the record.
It's sitting too long.
That is a long time to sit.
Thank you. For the record, Jim Hill, 2214 West of Mending Road in Weston Chapel. Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to talk a little bit about the village's cash reserves and give you a resident perspective on that. I read the last audited financial statements of the village, and in it states that the village policy is to maintain a reserve fund equal to 25% of annual operating expenditures. So put that in round numbers, that's about $200,000. The balance sheet that you guys got tonight shows a balance close to $2 million, and with the expected additional American Rescue Plan funds we received, I think in July, that'll push it up to about $2.3 million, which is roughly 10 times your stated policy reserve. From a resident and taxpayer perspective, my feeling on that money is it's actually your money too, as residents of the village. It's my money. As members of the council, you're stewards of the money, and thank you for doing that. But the money is there to benefit the residents and the taxpayers. One way to benefit the residents and the taxpayers with that money is to fix the dam. I appreciate that benefit. I don't want the road flooding. Another benefit I think we talked about at the last meeting is the Potter Road roundabout and whatever we have to spend on that. And we have some obligations for sidewalks. Even after it's inconceivable to me that even after we did all of that, that we would spend over $2 million in my lifetime. And the other thing about that money is it's actually losing money because we earn no interest on it, and because we can't, because that's the nature of the economy, and it loses 8% of the value every month. So as a taxpayer, I'm watching money that, gosh, I would like to see some benefit from sort of evaporate slowly, but it's still evaporating. So what I'm asking is consider when you debate the budget is consider how you can benefit the taxpayers with some of that money. What I would propose is put $1 million in the budget for, call it, village improvements, and you may end up spending all that on the dam. That's okay. That benefits. But I think we've gone on record saying that's the worst case. And I think if I was on the outside looking in, I would expect to see that worst case in the budget. So that may be one thing you want to do anyway. Is we know it's not zero, so you may want to put some money in the budget just so the taxpayers understand that. But if we don't spend $1 million on the dam, then think about other ways that you could spend that $1 million to benefit the taxpayers and the residents of the village. And if you need some other ideas, we have lots of ideas on how to benefit it. But I really it's great to be conservative, but you can be too conservative. And when you're too conservative, then as a resident, I see the money sitting there and saying, well, what are we waiting for? Why am I not benefiting from it? If you're not going to benefit from me, give it back. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else want to turn? All right. So I will close the public hearing. So I'll close the public hearing, and we've already talked about the block cameras, so I'm not going to say anything else about that. So, Cheryl, what do we do at this point?
Well, the next item is the code enforcement case. We don't come back to adopt the budget until item 14.
Okay. All right, so code enforcement case. We are still having issues on this property. And Sarah, you've been briefed in it, right? So
Yeah. I've been involved since the beginning of that one.
So give us a little.
So there's a pending judgment for the prior violations that were cured in May 2020. We still have the pending judgment against the owners of the property and the occupant of the property for the civil penalties that accrued for those violations that, between, I think it was September 2019 and May 2020 or something along those lines. So it does not look like they are going to ever sign a settlement agreement. So the option with that is to proceed with execution of the judgment, but that does not relate to or impact any current violations that are going on, which I understand there is concern about the current situation of the property. So that would be completely separate from that. It would just be about collecting the penalties that we have a judgment against them for. And the issue with the collection of the prior judgment is that there's a mortgage on the property, and so that's basically the asset that we'd have to collect against, but we don't know how much equity there is in the property. So there's a possibility that there wouldn't be enough to collect the judgment from, and then we'd have to try to find other assets owned by the defendants in the county, which I don't feel very optimistic about.
Do we know if there's any other liens on the property?
The mortgage is what we know.
Other than that?
We do not. And I believe that's actually the only one, because they were going through a process where they were going to transfer the property from father to son. And I spoke with the closing attorney. That never happened, but I spoke with the closing attorney who had done title work on it, and she only mentioned the mortgage. So I believe that's the only lien on the property.
Do we know the amount of the mortgage?
No, we do not.
We can't look at registered deeds?
You could look to see what the original amount was, and then, but you'd have to calculate based on what the payment provided for in there would be, but that would be assuming that they'd made every payment timely, and I feel like that's a big assumption in this case.
Mm-hmm. But would we know at least a max?
Yeah, we could know what the original was, unless it's one that secured future advances, but then we could still know the maximum amount that could have been secured under it.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking that the value of the property is not going to get bigger probably right now. Property values are kind of at their peak, I think.
Yeah.
So legally, or planning-wise, experts, what do you think we should do moving forward?
I think if the goal is to get it cleaned up, then I think the village seeking an order of abatement might be the most expeditious way, and then let the judge be the one to enforce the requirement that the property be cleaned up by a contempt order if they don't do it. Instead of trying, I think money from these people is probably blood from a stone, and it doesn't really accomplish anything other than paying the village back for its financial expenditures and pursuing previous abatement actions against them. So there's not a letter that could be sent that would move things 1 inch on this, I wouldn't imagine.
Ron, I've been dealing with this because I've been with council longer than anybody up here. Would you remind council the dollar amount of which you're speaking?
I have no idea. This was before. This was before.
Well, there was $2 amounts. There was the penalty or fee for non-compliance, and then there was also an addition to that, which was the cost of the legal fees for pursuing this. And we had talked about this in the past of, I'm not interested necessarily in collecting punitive damages, but at least want to recoup the amount of money we've spent on legal fees that is basically residents' money that we've spent to try to get this resolved. And at one point it was a lot better, but then it just kind of fell off the cliff again. Me personally, I don't necessarily want to penalize the homeowner. I just want them to pay back what we've spent to pursue this. And as we move forward with the problems no longer, it's still an issue. We have to move forward to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money and try to resolve this issue. And we've tried every nice way we can think of. So now it's time to say, sorry, you're forcing us into a situation where we have to be the mean guys and forcibly do what you don't want to have done, which is, or what the neighbors want to have done, which is the property cleanup.
As far as an amount, I would say it's $7,000 to $8,000 we've spent out of our pocket.
And that's legal fees?
Yes.
Okay, what about the penalties? Do you know what that would be on top? Not that I'm necessarily going after penalties, but I wanted council to know what kind of dollars and cents we were talking about here, because there's at one point you're throwing good money after bad trying to resolve an issue that really the long-term goal is not to have this problem, and we're not doing anything really at this point to get there.
So can you explain what the order of abatement is?
Yeah, so, and we did, again, I just want to, as a reminder, the collection of what has been paid already would be the collection of the judgment that we already have pending. So the order of abatement would be a new and separate action that we'd have to initiate. But it would allow, it basically would order, and also another thing I want to mention is that with the first lawsuit, we also sought an order of abatement, but the defendant voluntarily cleaned up the property before that even had a change, once they saw that the lawsuit had been filed. So that's why we never actually got an order of abatement. We just got to a judgment on our claim for the civil penalties that had already accrued at that point. But so for moving forward with the new violations, we'd pretty much the same, we'd have to go through the same process pretty much that you already went through with issuing the warning and then the citation and then filing the lawsuit to collect on the civil penalties and for an order of abatement, which would, if we got that, it would be a court order telling them they had to clean up the property and bring it into compliance with the ordinances. And if they didn't, they could be cited for contempt. And also at that point, the judge could authorize the village to go onto the property and clean it up itself. And then any funds that were expended by the village in doing that would be a lien on the property.
So the current judgment in place, what's the next step in that process?
We would ask for a writ of execution against the defendants and then seek to attach it to the property because it is not a lien on the property, so it's not automatically attached to the property. So we'd have to have a writ of execution issued to the sheriff and then have the sheriff attach it to the property and then see what we can collect. It
doesn't matter if he sells it to his son or not.
Yeah, he's not able to sell it to his son with this judgment pending, which is why they had involved us before when they were trying to coordinate the process, because we were saying that obviously at closing we'll want the village's judgment to be paid off before that happens. But the entire thing just fell through. But they will not be able to transfer the property with this outstanding judgment against the property owner.
So the judgment will proceed. You don't need anything from council on that.
Yeah, we can ask for the writ of execution to be issued and then go from there.
As a living on the board, I'm not familiar with this situation.
Look over here.
No, I see the pictures. The pictures are horrible. But is this an elderly gentleman? I mean, what's the...
Well, I think he's elderly. No.
Well. Many of us here.
I've talked to him several times. any is character. I don't know how.
He's either a hoarder or a junkie.
Yeah.
He collects things and brings them home and
Yeah.
just has a lot of
he's living with
things.
his son, or the family members?
He, I think his son lives with him, but from my understanding, he is disabled and unable to work.
The son?
No, the father.
Originally,
But
wasn't it his father that owned it and he transferred it to him?
the property is owned in the name of a trust, and he is a beneficiary of the trust. But the trustee is actually his sister, who does not live at the property.
Does she live further down the road?
I think she does live in the area. Yeah.
And this all came up because of complaints from the community and the neighbors?
I'm not sure how.
Yes,
yeah.
we're complaint driven, yeah. It's a mess. You would not want to live next door to it.
Longer than I've been on council.
And we had an email from a lady around the corner that stuff like that tends to breed copycats. And there have been a couple more issues. One, I guess, got cleaned up to the satisfaction of the neighbors, and there was one that came up pretty recently that we need to.
Some of them were on a much smaller scale. People keeping 4 or 5 junk cars in their backyard for parts, and we told them it was a violation. They cleaned it up, those kind of things. But this has been an ongoing.
Right.
Got a little bit better, but then it got worse again type situation.
There's actually 2 in the road. There's when I went to take a picture. There was another one, but we haven't gotten a complaint. But it was awful.
I think for the current violations, you would need to go ahead and start the process of issuing the warning citation and then the notice of violation that comes after that.
He's an elderly disabled gentleman. I just don't know.
He's been down this path 5 times already. This is nothing new to him.
It's actually been going on since before 2008. This is just a lifestyle.
Yes. He just needs to not be in an HOA or in an area that has neighbors.
But it's just a shame we keep putting money in it and we have not made any progress. And that's what frustrates me so much.
He's had plenty of time to clean it up. He'll straighten it up a little bit, then he'll go out again, straighten it up a little bit. So we need a motion for council for proceeding with the order of abatement.
I think if your intent is to pursue an order of abatement, then we can set the groundwork for one to be filed eventually. But it's
But what will
a week of notices isn't going to convince a judge, I don't think, to do anything about it.
But will that get anything done, or will that just incur more legal fees? All we do is seem to throw money in
I think
legal.
if they're successful in getting a judge to grant an order of abatement, then the judge would likely want to see their order carried out. I would imagine. I would hope.
Does that ever happen?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Well, I think from my perspective, I only want to see 2 things happen here. One, the residents of Wesley Chapel get the money back that they spent in legal fees. And 2, property get cleaned up one way or the other. Other than that, I don't care what hoops you have to jump through, or if it costs us a little bit of money, we need to start playing hardball. We've been dealing with this for over a decade. It hasn't gotten any better. I'm tired of playing nice with the guy.
Yeah, well, theoretically, if we execute the judgment on the property, it would no longer be owned by them after that happens.
And what happens then? Are they kicked out?
Yes.
So we're basically taking the man's home away from him.
If we execute on the property, yes.
It's been over a decade.
I know, I get it. But I also have elderly parents, and I know that they can't always get out and clean up.
But he's able to bring more in.
Didn't we offer?
No, that was that one we offered.
That was the one over here by Southern Lindsay. Different event. And nowhere near the scale of this.
Well, he doesn't work, and he doesn't have anybody with him. How's he going to afford to pay $8,000 back
sell some of that junk.
Well, yeah, he does have his son, and we did offer very reasonable like settlement terms. I think like $150 or $200 a month or something as low. And he came to me with that number, saying this is what I could pay on a monthly basis, and so we agreed to put together a settlement that would reflect that. But he just never signed. And I spent a lot of time chasing him for that too, and he would come back and kind of be engaged, and then I just wouldn't hear from him again. His son seemed to really like want to resolve it, but I mean, they just never signed the documents despite like tons of communications about it when we were trying to do it on very reasonable terms that they had said they could do.
And all the time Sarah spends, we pay for. Yeah.
Okay, so
I think for the current violations, the notices required by the ordinances that would be the next step with those, and I can get a writ of execution issued in the one that we have the judgment, and then that's
clear to the homeowner that that's two separate issues, and that he's either got to deal with one way and deal with the other one a different way. He needs to start paying what he owes us.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to start cleaning up the property when he's going to owe us more.
The current judgment you have against him, that was the one that was also accompanied by a potential order of abatement. It was never executed because he cleaned it up.
It, yeah.
But you have the filings and evidence to support the previous order of abatement that would have been issued still in your files, I would imagine. So, as support to a shorter, so we don't go for 6 months this time, maybe trying to get him to clean up, but can have a shorter time period.
You mean, do we have it available to like show as evidence?
Yeah,
that this is
not.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, all right. Because I think we could probably, since there's a pattern of violation and then non-compliance with a judgment as well, then we could be able to show that this is just recurring and an abatement order is needed to be able to get this place cleaned up because they're not going to do it voluntarily, or will slip back into their old habits.
I definitely will.
Yeah, and I get that. I totally understand that. What I'm saying, okay, so say we go through with it and we take his home away. Are you going to go down and clean up the property? Are you going to put a for sale sign out in front of it? What are you going to do with his house?
We as a council have the availability to hire someone to do the work and use that as, take whatever that costs us, and correct me if I'm wrong, have the property cleaned up, and then recoup that money at the end when the property is sold.
Yeah, it's honestly a interesting kind of procedural issue there, because we would have to wait until, I mean, if you wanted to be able to have it as a lien against the property, we would have to let the this new violation and kind of lawsuit against that play out. So we got the order of abatement and cleaned it up while they still owned the property, and then execute on the prior judgment. In order to be able to, one, clean up the property and also have the cost of the cleanup as a lien against the property, and then potentially collect. We couldn't have it transfer before then.
So potentially he could clean up his property when he gets a warning letter and then pay us or sign the settlement agreement and start paying us.
But potentially.
Theoretically.
But we know it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it could happen. He does have options.
But, yeah.
Well, basically, he's like, look, these guys haven't done anything to me for 12 years now, and they're not going to start doing anything now. So I can just tell them I'm going to do whatever, and they're not going to do anything to me. And I'm going to go to bed and just keep going to do the same thing tomorrow as I did today. It's exactly how we feel. Because we have no teeth to do anything, and he knows it.
Okay, so what would you like from council this evening? A vote to go into the order of abatement while we wait on the judge? Like,
I don't know. Do you need? I don't know that you need a vote to issue the warning.
Because
yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah, I just want to understand your intent. You know, if it gets cleaned up, great. But then the intent would be to, I guess, at some point you would need to instruct George at a future meeting to pursue an order of abatement.
Should we just do that?
We cannot pursue it until there's a violation.
There has to be a
a violation.
pattern of
That's
ignoring repeated
Okay.
entreaties.
It has been for over a decade.
Oh, I get that, but there needs to be a new.
Now we gotta start off.
there has to be like a citation. That's
Let's get them citations started.
so that would be the next thing to do, and then once that has happened, we can file pretty much the same lawsuit we did the first time with respect to the current violation.
Can't we just follow through in our original lawsuit? It just seems like we spent $8,000, so now we're going to spend another $8,000, and then we all spent $16,000, and will we ever get anywhere? I'm confused.
Well, our original lawsuit only is for the collection of money, though, because they cured the original lawsuit. The violations that it was based on have been cured, so we don't have any pending claim for abatement based on the
Was that
original
our
lawsuit.
former zoning administrator said it was cured?
I believe so, yes. I know somebody said that it was cured and sent pictures that they'd put a fence up and that
That's
it was.
when they put that white fence up.
Yeah.
Where they did it, yeah, they did it quite well. But now they're coming out of their fence up there. Me and my husband needs a new car that's better on gas. Maybe we can afford that. Okay, so council, are we cool proceeding with a warning for the current condition of the property? Hopefully he'll clean it up.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and Cheryl just, I think, took some
We'll do
pictures
letters, yeah.
the other day, and so we can send them a letter, and
The letter for the warning needs to include if this,
well, it's not,
then that.
it won't be it's not going to be a warning. It's going to be we can send a warning, but we're not going to send a warning. We're just going to send them a notice of violation, tell them they're in violation, they have to get cleaned up within the specified time.
Ramifications of which are.
Yes. Well, we have to.
I think you have to send a warning first. I think the way it is in the ordinance, we have to follow that in order to bring the lawsuit properly whenever it came time to get.
I think it's like a month. I mean 3 months maybe?
There's
for 3 letters.
All right, so we're going to get that process started. Everybody clear? Everybody clear? All right. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Cheryl.
I request a 5-minute break.
Necessity break?
Yes. 5-minute break. 5 minutes. Let me start my time. You know, beautiful runners. Everyone, good job getting back on time. That was a code enforcement. Now we're at the comprehensive plan steering committee. Bob?
We had a steering committee meeting before the council meeting this evening. Had the majority of the committee there. Bjorn wasn't able to be with us this evening, but he had sent some comments in previously that Bridget incorporated into an updated version of the plan, and then we got some more comments this evening from the committee members on a small number of topics. The committee recommended that the plan move forward to the planning board, who will have it on their agenda at the end of this month. We're holding a public information meeting on Thursday. Bridget and I will be here from 1 until 8. I think Cheryl's going to send out another email tomorrow to remind everyone. So hopefully we'll have some folks come by, but we'll be here. We've got some boards made up. We have some handouts. We'll have a way for people to provide some written feedback, and the hope is, I guess, the way things have been progressing, that the planning board would make a recommendation, hopefully on it, at their June meeting. We've been filling them in on details as the committee has developed information, recommendations. We've been passing along to the planning board during the process, and so they're familiar with it. I don't think any of them have really read too much of it at this point, but we will, when we send the latest version around after the public information meeting, we will encourage them to spend some time with it prior to the planning board meeting, so hopefully they have their questions in order, comments in order for that meeting, and then theoretically the council would be asked to set a public hearing for August, and we would come present the entirety of the plan to the council in August and have the public hearing and hopefully adoption at that time. But it's been almost a year.
It's crazy. It seems so daunting when
No.
we started.
And the survey, I guess, was even before I was here.
Thank you for doing the findings. Any questions for Vaughn? I hope that everyone can stop by for a few minutes Thursday. You can see David and Deb need to get a picture made, because we all made it and we planned the picture. Yeah, so we
There'll be visual aids.
There'll be visual aids.
Will there be food?
No.
Depends on if Cheryl goes out and buys. Well, Cheryl can be gone.
Not in Chambers, no.
Can I have a bowl full of mints or anything?
I might bring a bowl of candy.
Oh, there you go. Well, then I should-
We have candy dishes that we take to conferences. That will
Individually wrapped candy.
individually wrapped. Well, I don't know. We might do the whole buttermint thing. I'll stop by Dollar General and get some buttermints.
All right, so that's the update. Any questions for Vaughn? We're good. Western Union Municipal Alliance update. We met in Mineral Springs in May. It was a good meeting. It wasn't really anything big on the agenda, so it was more just like an update of what's been going on in each municipality. Marvin had their Marvin Day, which was a huge success. They had to turn people away from their concert and stuff that they had. They even had fireworks. So our next meeting is going to be at their new town hall. Mineral Springs, they just were really kind of just being Mineral Springs, nothing really exciting to report. Stallings is working on their downtown area. They're also having some staffing changes. So that will be interesting. And Weddington, as you know, turned down Weddington Green. So,
Do you still have support at those meetings from any of the county commissioners?
sometimes they will come. Jonathan Thomas is coming a lot, so he came to the perspective for support in the election. Didn't quite know if he wanted it, but he wasn't going to stop working hard. He was going to stay on. He's going to stay on the county planning board and continue at that level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do all the county commissioners know that they're invited?
So they were probably waiting to see how the primary would turn out, to see if they should waste township. So yeah, the fall election will be very interesting for our county, in our area specifically. What happens to us? But that was all. It was really a simple, more like a catch up with each other and what's going on in everybody's channel. That's it. So now we're on any questions? Now we're on item 14, consider approval of about 2022 23 So we have the document that we worked on last. Anybody have any comments or thoughts since last week?
I don't think anything's fundamentally changed since 2 weeks about the reason we made the decisions that we did. I don't think we need to make any changes.
But I will say, with John's comment about the water fountain, if we can't install it, then that's
Well, there's two sides to that coin. The other question, how long is going to let that, what was it, like an $8,000 water fountain sit in the hallway?
Why did we buy it if we didn't install it?
We didn't buy it because
Why did we order it as we did?
Because there's a belief from some statements made that we could install it, allowing the drain to just run through a gravel pit. That in fact turned out not to be the case. We need a sewer to which we don't have. So we had some inaccurate information regarding installation of funds.
But they're okay with the water standard.
It was installed pre-COVID and it's not a drinking water fountain.
Brad and I are going to meet with the county at some point. But when I was sewer, I mean, we can't spend $5,000 to install it, right?
Right. So please move it to irrigation.
What does council feel about moving it to irrigation?
What was the total irrigation original request?
9. If you move to 5, don't adjust anything else, we'll do $5,000 worth of expansion and not $9,000 worth.
I think one of the items that you had discussed at the budget meeting was that we don't know if we can use water out of the pond because we're going through the whole dam exercise. And so that was part of your reasoning for not doing the irrigation.
We're already using water.
The reason was, because I think I was the one that raised it originally, was one of the remediations that engineers and everybody had said was to lower the level of the pond as a way to mitigate the rest of the dam. And so my point was, until we know we aren't going to have to do that, why would we go and do spend money on an expansion that we might not then be able to hook up because they told us we have to lower the water level?
Right. Because the intake to the irrigation pump flows. So if we lower the level of the pond, the level of the intake will lower with the level of the water in the pond.
But the consumption of that water might then put us in a different space. It's just another unregulated to it.
I think one potential was to make it a perennial stream and not even have a pond. So, I mean...
Yeah.
Then we got even bigger issues.
Oh, we got huge issues.
We do.
Then we won't be irrigating any.
Right.
We'll have a stream.
We will have a nature area.
It'll be a flood playground.
While we have the irrigation pump, we might as well make full utility of the system that's already there.
So John, your plan was to expand from behind the band shell by the staircase and also above the flagpole toward the playground and toward the...
So there is a capacity to add 4 zones to the existing system. The wires are already run. So the proposal was 3 new irrigation zones and 1 additional quick connect that we already have. There's like a cap in the ground, you pull it up, you push this thing in, twist it around, you have access to pond water through a hose. So the proposal for the $9,000 was 3 new irrigation zones and 1 new quick connect up by the parking lot, so then we can irrigate around the parking lot area, the new shrubs we just put in, everything with pond water. If we don't go the full $9,000 and we do the $5,000, what I suggest is we put 2 quick connects, one up by the playground somewhere and one up by the parking lot somewhere. And in that way we can run hoses from pond water instead of running hoses from municipal water from the fire hydrant. So forget the new zones, just have 2 areas we can plug in hoses and use pond water to irrigate rather than city water.
So we could use, we've got tripod sprinklers.
Yes.
We could hook those up to that.
Yeah, just use hoses like I'm doing now with city water. I've got to keep those new bushes moist for a year. And right now I'm using the hoses we bought and I'm using city water from the hydrant. But I don't like using city water. I'd rather use free pond water.
That argument might be different.
Council, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable saying, let me back up. I don't think we need to pull that $5,000 out of the park. But I'm not sure that I'm comfortable tonight saying, well, let's just move that to an irrigation system. I mean, has Parks and Rec heard this? Is Parks and Rec in agreement, or in agreement with scratch the water fountain?
But they are aware we can't install it.
Okay, but have they voted on moving this? Okay, then I would say let's just tag it as a contingency fund, leave it in there, and then decide later on. How else do we use?
So,
I don't want to get into the weeds.
So
Tonight,
leave it
of
where
how
it
we're
is.
going to redesign the irrigation system.
Leave it where it is and move it later if need be.
Yes.
And change it from former install or leave it?
I just say leave it there. I mean, we've brought from Peter to pay Paul in the past. We've said, well, we're not going to use this money for fertilization. Let's put it in a park
I know
bench
that we
instead.
know we're not going to do this. So now when we change it, it should be changed. Because if somebody looks at this and say, oh, they put in a water fountain.
Well, we've been putting in a water fountain for 2 years now. And remember, anybody
That's
complained
the
yet?
intention.
I agree that we should remove the line item for the water fountain because we know it is not possible to do this budget year, so why keep any amount tagged to that? So I think it's either pull the $5,000 out for the general contingency, or just reallocate the $5,000 to irrigation expansion, specifically at the playground and the parking lot, to maintain the new plan.
But again, we haven't heard that from Parks and Rec. We've heard that from John, but we haven't heard that from Parks and Rec.
John's our maintenance technician.
That's
But they did
correct.
come to us asking for $9,000 for an irrigation system, and we told them that. That was in their budget proposal, it's $9,000 for the extension. But I just think if we're gonna leave it in there, let's just change it to something else, change it to water. And how we go from water from there on, or change it to
I hate the fact that we're using municipal water to irrigate new bushes and trees. I like the idea of using the water we already have on site and just utilizing the pump we already own to do that.
Are you compliant with the restrictions, the watering restrictions of the county?
We don't have any based on the fact that we're using on-site water.
No.
There's restrictions on using the days you can use your irrigation system. There are no restrictions on using a hose to irrigate.
It's a handheld, so you're holding it yourself. You can't put a sprinkler out on your non-days, is my understanding.
I move a sprinkler around, I drag hoses all over.
No, what I'm saying is my understanding of the restriction is I have 3 days a week that I can put sprinklers out. The other days I can handhold the hose, but I cannot put sprinklers out.
That's only if you're using municipal water.
That's what he's using for those planting, is the point.
I'm behind the stage, I'm using pond water, I'm not using county water. Up by the parking lot, I'm irrigating once a week when it doesn't rain. I'm trying to keep those bushes moist once a week.
Okay, so it's nothing happened daily or anything, so we're not in any violation or anything like that.
But I'm using very expensive
You are,
municipal water.
and further restrictions may be coming if the weather continues this way.
One also thing is we're at the last month of the fiscal year and you only have $500 left in that account, and if the water bill comes in over $500, we're going to be over budget.
I've been watering once a week since I put those shrubs in, so get ready.
The last bill was not up, but I have not gotten a bill that's high yet. Maybe you should take a reading and send it to me and we'll figure out what the water bill is at.
Well, to move forward on this, the question is, do we change the water fountain category to anything else, or do we just leave it there knowing that if we decide later to pull funds, that's where we pull funds from? I think that's what we've always done in the past.
I agree with the mayor. It shouldn't be listed as water fountain if it's not going to be water fountain. I mean, if anything, change it to miscellaneous, other costs that
Miscellaneous
need.
park maintenance.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
but keep it in park budget, just reallocate it to miscellaneous supplies.
Just rename the line.
just rename the line item.
So I will say, as many schools go to the park now, we should have the bushes not dying.
Yeah.
So our employees there, they need water. But we can wait and see what Park and Rec says.
I mean, if we have that as a contingency fee, he could use that to pay the bill.
Why don't you just move it to the water sewer account and then we can move it back? You said you wanted money.
Yeah, because if you don't install irrigation, your water and sewer bill's going to be higher anyway.
So move it to the $1,200 then? Done.
Water sewer?
Is that for you, okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And I'll put it on the Parks and Rec agenda.
I don't see it on the agenda here, but we need to have a discussion, as John indicated before, Because a lot of people talk about water and costs and bills and everything like that. The grass here at the town hall. We know if we don't put the irrigation system on, the grass is going to die. We don't turn the irrigation system on, our bill is what, Cheryl, per month? $1,200?
Anywhere from 500 to 1,200, yeah.
Where we know that when we turn the irrigation system on, the area out there specifically where we have the leak, that I can show you exactly where it is, needs to be fixed.
But we have John and the
There's
maintenance
no leak.
guy run them, and they can't find the leak. Can you run the zones and see if you can find the leak?
Well, I know exactly where the leak is because when the irrigation system's on, there's a bubble that you walk on the grass and it's like walking on a waterbed because there's a leak directly below that area. That's the only spot in the entire town hall that the grass is green.
But they ran the system, both of them, and they couldn't.
I was here for hours running every zone with the irrigation guy. We could not find it.
Does that mean there isn't one?
Not one that we can find. Not one that is apparent.
But I mean, I just can't go to Qantas pay a $2,000 water bill.
Well, I agree, because we're not using $2,000 worth of water. And the time to fix this would have been when the guys, this winter, were sitting around twiddling their thumbs with nothing to do. Now that it's summertime and everybody's having their irrigation system worked on, even if we call somebody tomorrow, it's going to say, I'll be there in a month or two to look at it and fix it for you.
But we've had 2 people look at it. I don't know what to do next.
I can put a stake in the ground exactly where the leak is.
Can you fix it?
It's not my job.
Not my job.
They ran every zone, and there was no leak.
Yep.
Can we just fire the water back up then and water the grass?
The bill was $2,000 a month.
Well, we got an extra 5,000 and he's just sitting there.
Not that
Oh,
one.
not more.
This is
That's
$2,000.
town hall versus park. So
If the grass all dies off because you don't irrigate it, getting grass back again is going to be very expensive.
absolutely.
All right, so let's do a trial run. We'll turn the sprinklers on. How many days a week will we do it, right?
Well, whatever.
For
was-
less amount of time than it's currently on. Because didn't we say they were on for too long?
They were.
Yeah. They were on for, we all agreed they were on too long. So let's.
How about if I have Dwayne do that?
Is council okay with that?
Sure.
We'll turn it back on 3 days with the 3 days.
I know how to adjust the timer. So you tell me how many minutes you want in each zone, and I can do that easily. You don't have to bring everybody
We
else.
want less than we currently do.
So I think the recommendation that I hear a lot of times is like an inch of water. So how would that work out? As a guideline for how long they should run?
I can call the irrigation company and ask them what the flow rate is and where we should set it for. You want an inch a week
I
when
think
it
that,
doesn't rain?
well, you can research and find out, but you know what I'm talking about, how they say, yeah, we're going to irrigate, you should do this.
And then,
And
we'll
no
reevaluate when that bill comes.
The irrigation guy's comment when he came about that soggy spot, Mike, out front was, it's just you putting too much water on and it's staying soggy over there. He didn't think there was a leak anywhere.
Well, we know that's a part of the parking lot that needs repair, so maybe it's related to that.
So John is going to turn the sprinklers on for 3 days a week.
For a lesser amount of time than we used to run them.
I can just turn it to the zone time and it'll tell me how many minutes it's set for right now. And I can drop it by 2/3. If it's on 15 minutes, I can drop it to 5.
Grass a lot.
I think it was on 20 minutes per zone.
It's on 20 minutes per zone now?
I think you need to reduce it to like 15 or 12.
We are having an event here September 30th that people might appreciate some grass to sit on while we watch the movie. So we'll turn them back on and we'll see what we can.
I will come tomorrow and I'll set them for half of whatever they are right now.
Okay. We'll
Every
reevaluate
zone,
that.
I'll cut it back by 50% for the time it's on.
Works for me.
Maybe that'll keep the grass green, maybe it won't. It's better than nothing, because nothing is all going to die in the next few weeks.
As a comparison, I run my sprinklers 3 days a week, 15 minutes per zone. My grass is still dying.
Mine's 3 days a week, 10 minutes a zone, and it's struggling this week.
Everything's struggling right now. Right now, I'm having a hard time with good conscience saying we should be putting water on the ground anyway.
our grass will be so glad to see any water, it'll probably be very happy.
All right, so now we're moving on. Anything else, Council?
So we have that ordinance. We haven't approved it yet.
No, I mean, I'm asking them about it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
On the budget in general,
Uh-huh.
should we add a line item for the dam repairs?
I think that next month you will probably have an amount for an engineer from this RFQ. And then we still don't know what the actual dam repairs will be. That will just be another engineer contract.
Have any of these experts given us a timeline from the time now to the time when it's going to be?
Yes.
The project's going to be completed?
2 years.
2 years. Do we figure the majority of that is going to be not this fiscal year, but next fiscal year? Cost-wise?
I don't think the North Carolina Department of whatever it is, I don't think they're going to let us have that much time. When we told them 2 years, they're like, no.
Well,
we
could allocate,
Yeah.
we could allocate $800,000 in this fiscal year and then not spend it. Or we could say $400,000 this year, $400,000 next year, or
We don't know yet.
We will know soon, but we just don't know
We
today.
don't have enough data to do it. We also don't want to put anything in the budget that would indicate, oh, here's what we're planning to spend, and jinx ourselves.
as long as council prepared to pull money from contingency as needed, as we move forward, as we gather more information, and
We have no choice.
to
It ain't
Jim's
gonna be
point,
free. It ain't gonna be free.
yeah.
And the other thing is, hopefully next month we can have some money freed up from the ARP funds. You know, 150,000. So that will be, maybe that would be what we could budget for the engineer.
To the average resident, are we being transparent enough with the budget, knowing that we've got this cloud looming over our head, and we're going to have to pay something?
Well, it's very transparent if they read the minutes of the meeting or listen to a recording, how much we've talked about the dam and when did it occur and how little we know at this point what any of the repair or cost would be.
Good point. Yep.
Yeah, so what is next is, so we've issued the RFQ, and then hopefully the data collection results will come in 2 weeks, and then hopefully 4 weeks after that we'll have a report. So whoever we pick for the RFQ can begin to work on the proposal for the engineering, and then we'll have to issue the RFP. So, I mean, at times there will be adding, and would that be a line item for each thing, Cheryl? Like, would it be listed out like engineering in every, it wouldn't just be 1 month dam remediation, right?
Right, I would think it would be a little more detail, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Would this qualify as like a capital outlay project or not?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, we just don't
Is that
know.
for multiple fiscal year?
Yeah, if it's going to be that long.
And that's listed on the budget in a different way, right? You can't say we're doing that because we don't know if we're doing that.
Right. It's just been also
Yeah.
confusing.
Council? I'm looking to you for guidance. You brought it up, David.
I mean, my concern was Lori being transparent, and I agree with what you say. Average resident has questions, they can always go 2 minutes and see how much we've discussed this.
Or they can talk to you in the grocery store.
The produce aisle. But,
It's produce.
what's that?
It's always in the produce
It's
aisle.
always the produce aisle. And your point, I mean, we really don't have enough information to either hold the
I think,
dogs
I'd
up.
like to say it's not going to be more than $1,000, but I think that's not true.
But if a little bit toward Jim's point, if somebody walked in here tomorrow and said, look, I can fix your problems, I'm certified, I need all the red tape done, I can have this thing fixed in 10 days, it's going to be $800,000. We have the money.
We can't, yeah, but we can't fix it for $100,000 probably.
No, I said $800,000.
we still can't go with them. We'd have to bid it out.
Well, I know, I'm just saying that if somebody walked through here and said, look, I can fix this problem and I'm qualified, I can do it all, and have the whole thing fixed in 10 days, here's my bill, we can pay the bill.
So, but if we put that in there, somebody's gonna say, they got $800,000, but we are gonna bill them $800,000. Could they do that? I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Agencies do that.
Just leave it like it is.
If we bulldoze the dam completely and build a brand new dam from the ground up, it wouldn't cost us that much.
Well, we still have to do a lot of it.
I've asked that question.
Leave it up to them. And I will say, we've also had some questions about the landscaping contract. So, basically, the landscaper talked to John and Brad about, he wanted to, this is my understanding, so correct me, John, if I'm wrong. He would like to increase his rates or some of his costs, but he doesn't really want to go through the rebidding process. But for us to go into a new contract, we would have to rebid it out.
Legally, yes.
So I don't think that we can, in good conscience, say, oh, taxpayers' money, we're just going to raise it 5% or whatever. It's a little shady to me.
I gave him that feedback. He said, fine, rebid it, because I can't go on providing the services at a current rate.
Okay, well then that's it. So we will start the rebidding process then.
He really should send something officially to us.
Didn't you ask him that one?
Yeah.
I can contact him too, either way.
Okay. Well, Cheryl, okay.
I'll ask him.
His argument is not unreasonable. His argument is, look what's happened to fuel, look what happened to labour, I'm losing guys all the time, I have to keep paying new guys more, I'm losing all this experience, and fertilizer's gone through the roof.
I mean, I agree his costs have probably increased
Since he signed this deal in 2018,
but this is the land of...
so he's got to the point where he's like, dude, I don't know I can keep doing it for this rate. I'm like, we may have to rebid it. He's like, well, if a guy in a lawnmower takes it from me with a pickup and a lawnmower, I'm like, I don't want that to happen.
I mean, Jordan's been wonderful to work with.
He is. He's real. I mean, we've got a good working relationship. The grass is looking great at the park. I mean, he addresses all issues. I hate to start over again with a new person, but if we have to rebid it and we end up with a new contractor, that's what we got to do.
And if we're going to rebid it, we probably need to redo the specs because you've changed plants and things at the park. So we might as well update the specs.
Yeah, the one thing I would like to add to the spec is that if in the areas that are not irrigated, if the overseeding doesn't take in the fall, they'll come back and patch the grass afterwards.
All right, council, are you okay if we rebid?
Yeah.
All right. So any more any thoughts on the budget? I'm just going to go down the Okay. David? David? Yeah. All right.
I think if we're going to agree to rebid the landscaping contract, I think the current budget shows the current level of landscaping. Don't think it's going to be the same. It's probably going to be more.
No, it's not going to be the same.
Well, we don't know what it's
It's not going to be less.
Well, it's like it's the same argument for the dam. We're not
Sure.
going to change it because we don't know what it is.
Just be prepared. You're going to have to pull money from contingency to pay for what we know now is going to be an increase.
So we need to adopt the resolution, which is
It's actually an ordinance. 2022-09.
I make a motion that we accept ordinance 2209 for the budget with the change noted earlier about the line item for the fountain being renamed to water miscellaneous.
No, it's not water and sewer.
Water and sewer.
Yeah. And, you know, the budget ordinance is a more of a summary level, but it reflects that detail.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Nothing? Okay. So that brings us to council comments. Who wants to go?
I don't know if this is the right, appropriate time or place.
You just can't
I'd like for the council to look at not having 3 alternates on the planning board. No other committee or board has alternates. What's the planning board have alternates?
Parks and Rec has alternates.
Do they have 3? How many do they have?
I think they have 2 alternates.
They have space for 3, I think.
Yeah, they have space for 3, but they
2 or
only have 1
3.
alternate currently, so there's
Right.
space for 2 more alternates.
I will say it probably makes it harder for our planner when he comes into a different makeup of personalities every month.
I talked with this. I don't know if it was Cheryl. I can't. Maybe it was you. It was the mayor. And just from my perspective, depending on who is sitting up there, you can get very different feedback and direction on things of potentially great importance that might create conflict sometimes between the planning board and itself. And that's my only observation, is being able to...
But the diversity is what we're looking for when it comes to a planning board.
Then expand the planning board.
Yeah, but not diversity. So, for example, we had a public hearing that went on for 4 months. And there could be items that come before the planning board that get continued from 1 month to the next. And you can have 2 totally different groups of people trying to act on it or vote on it or do whatever, and there's no consistency because it's totally different people who may or may not have been there the prior month.
Yeah.
I think on the planning board, you definitely, if it got continued, it was a different ballgame.
I would say that
reviewed everything again.
I think having a larger planning board is fine. But not excluding, because people aren't necessarily excluded, but having the ability of the same theoretical group of people to be engaged in each meeting. Because what if there were different alternate council members that you talked about the budget and the budget workshop, and then you came to the budget hearing, and the other folks got in tonight, and things might turn out differently. I know the planning board is only recommending things, but some things can take much longer if there's different groups of people debating items. A larger group's not I think a group of 5 or whatever is a great number to work with, and sometimes when there's alternates, people don't feel as much need to attend meetings. Oh, don't worry, Jim will be there, Sally will be there.
Yeah, that's right.
That's my only. Just from
What is the attendance percentage for the core 5 members? How frequently do we have 100%?
Some people attend probably 90.
Not that good of the 5, and really I think you're going to have a lot more canceled meetings because we won't have a quorum if we only have 5 of them. Those alternates save us many times.
Well, I can also say from at least when I was attending planning board meetings, that if an alternate is sitting in the audience and has something to say, he or she gets the at least the opportunity to voice their opinion one way or the other.
Yeah.
But we could increase the board size to say 7 to keep it an odd number. And then you could have a quorum more easily and still continue to vote and move forward. But how is that really different from alternates?
There's not a great answer for it if you're not going to have consistent attendance. I guess the inconsistency of attendance sometimes has been frustrating.
Is there a attendance policy in, like, the communications charter has an attendance policy? Is there one in planning board charter?
Yes.
I think most people have abided by the letter, if not maybe.
We have 2 members who have been very inconsistent.
One has been infrequently attending over the last maybe
year,
and
And the other one over the last 2 years, yeah.
That's my only observation is that it's easier to work with a consistent group. Because even if somebody's not there, there's not a different voice. It's not going from 5 to now 6 or to 5 to 7 or 5 to 8 different. And the more the merrier. So I mean, whatever size the planning board is, we'll definitely work with that. But
increasing it to 7 is going to be an issue because they won't be able to sit up here unless they're all coming together. And work.
Sure.
Yeah.
We just want 2 more chairs. Get rid of these things because they're worthless. 2 more chairs, just push it.
we can put people.
But you've got two planning board members that are not coming up again, and you've got 3 alternates. So if those 2 alternates move up, that leaves 1 alternate. I don't see why you just can't stick with 1 alternate instead of trying to get 2 more alternates. But that's just me.
Yeah, to Cheryl's point, there's been many meetings where we've been pulling alternate number every 2 and 3 on just about every meeting.
I think probably been about every meeting in the last.
The other
since
thing
I've been
is,
around.
we've been doing this for 22 years and it's worked.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, maybe it's working so well now, but based on what Vaughn's saying. And I do feel like since Vaughn's been working with us, we have pushed through more things more expeditiously through the planning board than we ever did before. No doubt of that.
And maybe one thing is right now there's been a couple of subjects have been maybe particularly of a couple of members wasn't to their liking, and that may have contributed to what you're saying.
I'm just saying it gives people permission not to show up when they know there's 3 alternates. But that's
don't get paid.
Which is more than that. Oh, you got
that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Dave, what's your 2 cents?
Sarah, I'm sort of disappointed that George is not here because he gets tickled with my quotes. Nobody else does, but he does. One of the kids told me a couple of weeks ago that they heard this shared in a meeting that if someone truly cares, they make an effort and not an excuse. I'm excited about what's going on with the communications committee because I think that's huge, but I think we also need to take it one step further and eliminate some of the excuses that we've had in place with the fire department. I don't know the history between us and the fire department. However, in the course of conversations going through the comp plan, that was something that came up, and I'd like to ask permission to reach out if there's no skeletons hanging in that closet, to reach out to the chief of the fire department and just start dialogue. I mean, they're a huge part of this community. I can remember going to the barbecues at the fire department. That was our social event every quarter. We rely on them, we depend on them. They're always there. I think we need to engage in conversations with them. We need to make that effort.
I'd be happy to
Are
do
we
with
covered
that.
by 2 stations?
I'm sorry?
Are we covered by 2 stations?
There's a tax district. Is it 2 or 3 we have?
There's at least 2.
Somewhere west of Chapel is covered by Mineral Springs. I live in one of those houses.
Springs, Bakers,
I'm thinking of starting with the one that shares our name.
but the most, the big majority is 2. And well, maybe something with National Night Out,
And to add to that, I really think, based upon the recent dialogue between some planning board members and our council, I think it's important that we sit down with them periodically to board, the council, and just share if there's concerns. Give them a forum to talk with us other than depending upon their chair possibly being here or not being here to get that information to them.
Well, didn't we have money for a retreat this year that we didn't do?
Don't steal my thunder. Very good.
But, and one other thing, I think, you know, albeit, I mean, you can see by the attendance, but I think there's a desire for people to know more about what's going on in the village. You know, since the first of the year, I've reached out to the spiritual leaders every month to come and give an invocation, and every one of them have jumped at the opportunity. And even, you know, I mean, Pastor Parker has already sent me a text saying, "Hey, I want to get together. Yeah, let's talk more." I don't know if there's a platform or an avenue for that, albeit not just spiritual leaders, but also business leaders. You know, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just looking through Pollyanna glasses. But I really feel like that, again, we need to make efforts and not excuses to get more involvement from the leaders, from the residents, from everybody who wants to jump in.
Well, with that said, David, I know you've got a meeting scheduled with Amanda later this week with the Aston Properties. Does that make sense to try to incorporate any of the business owners in that conversation?
I think at some point, possibly. I think the important thing for us right now is just to get dialogue going with those guys. You know, they may tell us to get pound sand. You know, yeah. And if that's the case, then why waste anybody's time?
True. It's not like we haven't tried in the past.
Yeah, true.
You do know the history that we haven't been sitting on our hands over the last few years doing nothing. Brad has taken the lead on that. We had some other council members try to push forward on that. We kept always getting the same results, but I'm willing to let anybody try who's willing to make the effort.
I myself have sat in 2 meetings with Aston at their offices, with Elaine Rosenoff, with Brad, I forget who the other person was. And we walked out of those meetings shaking our heads. You know, I hope tomorrow is not more the same.
You want us to pound the sand at Dogwood Park?
I just want to make a suggestion to David's point. All the HOAs around here have an annual meeting when the residents gather. Council might want to volunteer to say, "Hey, I'll come and answer any questions about the village at your HOA meeting." Now, I'm not saying they're attending greatly. Ours might, we get what, 40, 50 people?
Yeah, 40, 50 people, and usually what happens is if I end up going, somebody eventually turns to me and goes, "Oh, Mike, by the way,
what's happening with this lot? What's happening with the roundabout? What's happening in traffic? What's council doing about this?" I used to get the questions all the time as well. So you might want to try and figure out a way to reach out to HOAs and say, if you have an annual meeting and if you want somebody from council to come and answer questions, council would be happy to do it.
And add that on communications list to communicate.
I don't think we have any representation in West of the Oaks right now, or some of the other bigger communities. I don't think there's anybody in Boston, or not Boston.
The HOA meetings would be a good venue for you guys to communicate with.
I second that one.
Well, then step one with the fire department. I mean, you guys give Deb my blessings just to reach out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I had talked about at the budget meeting, this year we've given our residents several opportunities to weigh in on town stuff. And so I was thinking, like, instead of an annual retreat, doing like an appreciation event for our boards and committees and volunteers, whoever, whatever that might look like. But maybe we need to think broader. Maybe we could do an appreciation event and some sort of open house once a quarter. I know that the communications committee is researching coffee with council, where once a quarter residents would be invited in. So maybe that would just be a good place to tag into that. But I did have
Coffee with council?
Yeah, Marvin does it. Remember?
With the mayor.
Yeah, I think it is a rotating schedule.
Is that martinis with the mayor?
Yeah, margaritas with the mayor.
All right, now you're talking.
But, you know, we've got a lot of things coming up. We've got the movie night, which I think is going to be held here, right?
Here.
We've got the public information meeting that you've got scheduled with the comprehensive plan. We could also, if we get people coming in for a movie, we could also give them a tour of the town hall. We could also show them the comprehensive plan. We could also, do like a food event where we have, hey, come, we got food, we got movies, we got a tour of the building, we got a comprehensive plan to show you. We try to incorporate all that into a single event, draw them in for one thing and show them all lunch.
Feels like something within the purview or scope of the communications committee.
Well, we got the 25th anniversary coming up.
Yeah, that we need to push
We
hard.
got the comprehensive plan, we got the movie night, we could do something where we have like a day-long event, where the doors are open, and we're constantly doing something to draw people in.
Have food
But I
and they
do-
will come. Have food and they will come.
But I do want to take some of that retreat money into an appreciation event for our thing.
We've had a lot of turnover.
That's a lot of mints there going.
Oh, mints
I'll get a doodle
and
bag.
M&Ms. But
I'll
I
get a
think
doodle
Did you
bag.
hear?
I was thinking about feeding people, making that like a nice,
SPCC?
yeah, maybe.
Gets very expensive. I mean, how many?
How much money do we have in the budget? for
2,500.
Yeah, rent the hall, pay for food. All those are the two biggest expenses.
We used to do it where a committee member, we would and a staff member, we would provide their dinner. But if they wanted to bring a spouse, they had to pay.
Well, we could do that. It could be an appreciation, and if you want to add a +1, you have to take them. I just would like to do something. I don't know
SPCC was always a great place to use, and the food was good. And it was, I don't know what it is today because inflation and everything else, but they were reasonable at the time. Nowadays it's probably $30 a dinner. I don't know.
Well, and to your point, David, on the fire department, we actually had a retreat one year at the fire station.
We did. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe Savitas will let us have drop-in night up there. I don't know. I would just like to explore that idea. But I wanted to ask, would council see that as more of a fall or a spring event?
It'd be good for either. It would be good for either.
Things are usually so busy in the fall. Just in the past, people are doing football, sports, school's back, fall festivals. In the past, we've found it very busy. The spring seems to be more open.
When's the movie in the park? Is that September?
Yep, September 30th.
Yeah.
If we could incorporate the September event here with an open house and food. Yeah. We don't have to have people in here with food. We can say, here's some, food outside and keep food outside.
Well, Brad said they were going to do popcorn or candy.
Well, I thought you were talking about something a little more substantial.
Bring some grills and
For
grill
committees,
hot
not
dogs.
for the public.
Well, we can offer back patio for the employees. We can do hot dogs and bratwurst and who knows.
I just wanted to make them feel special by having something. We have trouble drumming up volunteers and filling seats, so it would be nice to say thank you to those who do fill the seats.
If you have free food, you're going to have, 500 people that we've never seen before run and get their free food and then leave. But if you really want to give appreciation to people who have made a difference in the town, that's a different tone.
So those are just my thoughts, so I'll try to think some more, come back to you.
That leaves me, right, unless you're done. Are you not done? We've already talked about the irrigation system. I had that written down here. The first person that got to speak specifically about the roundabout and gave us some kind of information and flyers about that. I think in general, we have shown through our vote with the Five Stones issue that we're not willing to make the traffic situation on Cutchinson Road worse. But I think now that that is complete, we need to do what we can to take what is a problem, Cutchinson Road traffic, and try to make it better. So if we can do anything to support either a right-hand turn lane or a roundabout or anything that would help solve the problem that we still have, the better. And I think that should be something that we as a council publicly state, whether it's through this organization, the Cutchinson Road organization, or just in general on our webpage, say we want to make the roads in Wesley Chapel better. We've already agreed to pay for the our percentage of the roundabout at Potter and Potter. We'd like to see, definitely not like to see the problem on Cuthbertson Road get worse, but we would like to see what the experts say to make it better.
So I got an email, I'm trying to find it over here, shortly after that Firestone debacle, hearing, where they talked about they were already doing the research for a roundabout and stuff. And they were asking for residents to call them, and I tried to connect them with you, about that.
Then we're talking about things for the communication committee to do. There you go.
Yeah.
We need to say, we as a council and residents in general support improving this intersection. And this is before the library goes in. This is before the 500 house subdivision goes in. We need to be at least a little bit more proactive, because that road's not going to get better. For the library.
Then they're going to ask
You have to be prepared for a local match.
I understand that, but we work very hard to not make the problem worse, at least as much as we can control. We can't control the 500 new houses. We can't control the new library. But we should try to do whatever we can to try to make the existing situation better, because it's not going to get, it's going to get worse if we don't do anything. Last one, no, I have two more notes here. One, of course, we've got a 25th year event coming up. I think we should do something to mark that through Parks and Rec or whatever you want to that. And the two things I got from Jim's speech was the budget is to benefit the residents, and the question is be conservative or spend. And I know we've got a lot of question marks as far as what we're going to be spending money on and how much money we're going to be spending over the next year or so. But at the same time, we collect taxes so that we can do stuff to benefit the residents. And,
But I will say, we discussed this at one last week.
uh-huh.
We are not the only town around here with money in the bank. People
I
put
know,
money in the bank for a
I'm sure.
reason.
I'm not saying to empty the cash register or even take it anywhere near the 20% overhead that we legally have to keep. But we talked about the need for other things other than just the park budget.
Yeah, there are things in town besides the park.
We've got road improvements, we've got sidewalks, we've got potential other road improvements.
And I'm not sure that some of that money that's in the bank right now is going to continue to be ours and stay in the bank.
Yeah.
You know,
Who's taking our money?
I mean, maybe they've been selling with the property over here.
No.
Okay.
Well,
We're
we'll
trying
see
to
that.
tick our clock out on that one.
Okay.
Sarah, what's the timeline on we sold some land, the original owner wanted us to give them the money or give them the land back, or they were going to sue us. How long do they have to sue us after we sell the land? Is there a statute of limitations on that? We were thinking it was like 2 years.
What's the reason for?
They said that they had given it to the town so the town could use it for a park or ambulance pad, and the town didn't use it for that, but the land was never deed restricted, and there was never any documentation that was produced to support that.
It was given to us sort of in conjunction with approval of a shopping center.
It was a bribe.
Yeah, basically, but then we decided that we weren't going to use it because the ambulances walked a road, and that's not where we want to put another park.
Yeah.
So we sold it.
For profit.
Has this issue come up before?
Yes. They
Did you
sent a letter. And
sell it to a vet, or is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, there is a statute of limitations. I don't think that it would have. I have to look back at the.
Can you look and tell us?
Yeah, I can do that, but I don't think it would have passed. I would say it's probably several years at a minimum if they are going to say it. I guess it depends on if they're going to say this. Didn't they bring a lawsuit before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just have to look back at the original lawsuit to see what they said.
We took the money we got from the sale of the property, put it in the bank, and tagged it for "Don't touch this money" in case.
Yeah.
And it was not a small amount, like
$440,000.
Yeah. Yeah, I can look back at the original lawsuit and see what the nature of the claims they brought were.
We just want to know
remind
when we start
myself.
spending the money and not have to worry about having to get it back.
Yeah.
Even then, I don't know that we spend it if we have another lawsuit headed our way. outside that piece of paper.
Well, if I had a crystal ball, I'd sell it to you.
You would sell me a crystal ball? Does it work?
Well, you have to buy it first.
Oh.
All right.
Any more comment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you guys, thank you Sarah, thank you Mike.